Welcome to Best in Faction.
The next generation.
Guys, how does a kill rig write secret messages?
How?
With invisible oink. Please send help. I'm out of joke ideas.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Lucas.
And boy, oh boy, am I excited today. We have got something real OG, real fashionable, real exciting in store for you all today. It is, of course, time for our brief interlude away from our faction-focused series. It is time for the Rosehammer GT 2023, the first major in the city of Portland, Oregon, ever? Certainly the first GT since the pandemic began all those years ago. It is large, it is in charge, and we were all there. It was a ball and a biscuit, and we cannot wait to tell you all about it. We've got stuff covering games for all three of us. We've got armies, we've got stories, we've got a little bit of success. Looking forward to it. But before we jump into all of that nonsense, how you boys doing today? How you doing today, Lucas?
Doing great. The post-tourney week is always a bit of a slog to get through, especially when you don't take the day off before or after. But we got there. We're hitting another weekend, so now it's time to relax and kind of rejuvenate a little bit. So, yeah, just been riding the high of this such an awesome tournament at Rosehammer last weekend. It was overall, Colton bit off a lot, and it turns out he could chew all of it. Like he, set out to accomplish a lot and found a lot of success. So I'm super happy for him. I'm super happy that a ton of people came out, and it was just an awesome event all around. So I'm feeling great. Just got that post-tourney buzz. So yeah, it's great. How are you, Nick?
I'll mute myself and tell you. I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty good this week. So yeah. I've been trying to get back into the swing of practicing. Rosehammer got me really excited about playing 40k in arcs. It's always like whenever you play that like first event, like in a mission pack, or if you haven't played an event in a while and you go to an event, like you always leave feeling excited and like refreshed, and just wanting to try new things out. So I've been trying to play some practice games. Got one in at least. Had a few others that were canceled sadly, but is what it is. But yeah. Just looking forward to, we got another GT coming up at the end of April locally. So just kind of looking forward to getting some reps in so I can perform my best at that tournament. And I guess, the spring moving forward. How about you, Tyler? How are you doing this morning besides super excited?
I am doing real good. It is the middle of graduate school finals week, which is always a lot, but we're making it through that. We're making it through that because I am definitely still riding the high of last weekend. That event was, and we'll talk about more in a sec, but it was awesome. But also, I'm a little bit annoyed because we made this huge episode all about Jane Steeler Colts and how I felt like I totally understood the faction inside and out. And then literally like the next day, Eric Lathuris comes out and says, yeah, by the way, everything you thought you knew was a lie. We have an entirely brand new build now that I think is better. And it's nothing like what you were playing previously. No bikes. So that list is super cool. Go check them out on the Alien Majesty to hear more about it. I've been playing a lot with that. I've been practicing with that. I've been practicing with my normal stuff. I'm just getting a whole bunch of games into a bunch of different stuff and having a whole lot of fun. Very excited for that big event coming up soon. We got a Balance Day slate coming up soon. That's real exciting. Just overall feeling real. I don't know about real good about where the game is right now, but real good about where I am in relation to the game at the moment. I'm feeling real invested and very excited. So without further ado, shall we get to the main event?
Let's do it.
There we are. All right. So This is episode 38, the days of Squigs and Roses. We're about to jump into Rosehammer. Let me do some plugs real quick before we do that. If you enjoy what we're doing, please make sure that you subscribe on our YouTube channel. It's the best way that you can help us out without paying any money. If you're looking to pay a little bit of money, you can support us over on Patreon or become a YouTube member as well to get more access to bit reps and other content like that. Patreon gets you into the Discord to keep the conversation going. But without further ado, let's talk about Rosehammer. This was March 11th and 12th. That was last weekend in Portland, Oregon. And we came out in force. Nick, you want to run us through the details of the event?
All right, here's our tournament recap, details, rundown. We got a 95-person, 6-round major, elevated from GT to major status. Very cool. This was played with the Arcs of Omens mission pack. Terrain-wise, we were doing player-placed terrain. A little bit different than usual. There's no like FLG terrain here. None of the bird boards that we're used to up here in the Pacific Northwest either. This was terrain that was custom built like a few weeks before the event with player placed in mind. And yeah, some pretty interesting board setups that I'm excited to talk about. The pairings wise, it was random pairings within win bracket. At least this was supposed to be. Day one, it wasn't. It was forgot to turn on. Everyone thought it was random, so it basically functioned as if it was, and then it became random on the second day. Although I do think the finals might have been battle points. So placing wise, it was battle point placings, no like strength of schedule or anything like that. And that is our Rosehammer tournament details.
Yeah, very cool. We'll definitely talk about the terrain somewhat in depth, sort of on the tail end of this. But Lukas and I were pretty involved in the design and construction of all that stuff. And it's a really cool format that we're looking forward to expanding more on in the future. Sweet. So time to talk a little bit about the event itself. I don't know. Do we have the list of our usual points? No, we don't. But
I do not.
In terms of event, this event was hosted in the Lloyd Center Mall, of all places, which is one of the many dead malls across America. On the top left here, you can see we were in an abandoned H&M, and in the bottom right, that is a former Victoria's Secret. So I don't think you've ever seen this many 40K players in a Victoria's Secret before, but we took over. We had like 25 tables on each side, basically. Yeah, it was. What did you guys think of the venue? It was definitely different from anything I've done before.
It was different, but I think overall it worked. There was a surprising amount of space in there. I feel like if we really wanted to, we could fit another, I don't know exactly how many, but we could definitely fit some more tables in there, which was cool. And overall, it was fun. It was nice to be able to like go out into the mall, go somewhere else for lunch, stretch the legs a little bit, have that be separate from the venue. But overall, the mall was kind of fun. Definitely, like you said, Tyler, in a interesting part of town, let's just say. But yeah, overall I liked the venue quite a bit. It was fun to just play in a different, because I'm used to playing in Bird Store or in an event hall or something like that. So to play in somewhere truly different where it's like this is just an abandoned storefront. It kind of felt like those first couple of games of playing at Bird's Place before he cleaned up the back room, where it still looked like an old hardware store. Kind of felt like that. Where it's just like this feels like an old store rather than a gaming hall or anything like that. So it wasn't just a nice, like, cool refresher, something different. What'd you think of it, Nick?
It definitely felt surreal, dude. Like just walking into these, like, I don't know, hollowed out stores in the middle of the mall where there's people walking around, like poking their heads in, like, yo, what's going on in here? Like there's just random people coming in, not like too many, and none of them like got in the way. Everyone that did was like super respectful, but it was cool having people come in and they're like, what's going on in this ancient Victoria's Secret? And you're like, oh, we're playing 40K. And they're like, cool, I don't know what that is. Yeah, I know day one when we were setting up all the tables, or like on Friday night when we were helping set up, we were worried about noise, but I was like surprisingly happy with the level of noise. It didn't echo as much as I thought it would. I never left like with a headache or anything like that. So like the space worked out. The space was very accommodating. I remember when we were setting up the tables, I was really trying to like make sure that there was enough space between the tables, because one of the things I hate the most is like bumping into like table partners behind you or to the side of you, or not being able to actually walk around your table, especially if you're playing Hammer and Anvil. It's a nightmare. So the amount of space was super nice. It was just like it was definitely super hilarious. Just like, all right, we're gonna like lug all of our plywood tables over to like the abandoned mall stores and hang out here for 2 days. So yeah, had a good time.
Definitely. I know also that we knew going in that there were a couple of members of our tournament community who are in wheelchairs. So we had to make sure that every table was fully accessible, which meant a minimum of 3 feet between, which led to us having lots of space in all sorts of places, which was really great. And also really good to be accommodating and accessible so that everyone can enjoy the hobby. Yeah, it was real cool. The bathroom situation was so close to great. Because there were plenty of bathrooms on both ends. You did have to go to the 3rd floor if you needed bath tissue, but you know, that's a problem that can be solved next time with a Costco run. There was free water if you're willing to work for it to go find the fountains, or they had both a dude slinging drinks real quickly, taking credit cards too, in the Victoria's Secrets, and then also there were vending machines just in the middle of the hall between the halls, which was great. So it worked out real well for that. The food was there. You had to know what you were doing because the lunch breaks were a little bit tight. But if you knew what you were doing, it was really easy. Dickie's in particular. Yeah. I had never been to a Dickie's before, but it's a really quick in and out, get yourself a barbecue sandwich, move on with your life. I know that Chuck was there, though, and he had a pretty negative experience with the food because he wasn't really sure what was going on. I'm sure he'll talk more about that on BIFPOD later. But yeah, 90% of the way there, I'd say.
Less than an hour for lunch break is not great.
I personally think an hour is the minimum.
Yeah.
Got to give people a chance to relax a little bit and not feel sick scarfing down their food.
It was unfortunate because like we were based off of mall hours, and I think the mall didn't actually like unlock its doors until 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So we like said, all right, be there at 10. Game starts 10. So we tried it as much as possible. But yeah, it was annoying having to like work within the hours and having to be on lunch. I packed lunches most days, and that worked out super well. But I know that other people definitely don't have that luxury. So yeah, that was really like my only big gripe.
Kim's got some great advice. Just play nights, no problem. You'll be in and out in
play against guard, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, very cool overall. Phenomenal event. I think like we're like 95% of the way there on a whole lot of stuff. So for this being Colton's first like real try at a big event, I am so impressed.
Yeah,
I have been to events run by people who've been doing them for years who didn't get close to this effective.
For like basically 100 people. I didn't really.
Yeah, for 100 people.
Like, the vibe in the rooms the whole weekend was like very positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we need better table numbers. That's a huge thing for me.
That was a nightmare.
Yeah, we need better table numbers. We need slightly better bathroom stuff. Having tons of storage space was really great too. We need slightly longer lunch breaks, and I think someone had a list of more things we wanted to do. The stream ended up coming together really quickly last minute. Sorry?
Like 1 or 2 more judges is what I heard. Because we only had like
a couple more judges. Yeah. Very cool. But yeah. Kim, yeah, right on. Oh yeah, big shout out to our boy Colby Hopkins, the local Big Mech, for dropping out of playing demons to commentate the stream and act as a judge. He did a real good job of doing that stuff. So much love for our boy Colby. Cool. All right. Anything else you guys want to say before we jump into the lists?
Let's get started.
Sweet. Let's do it. Well, starting off, we got our boy Mr. Olsen Johnson over here playing what has now become. Well, I mean, we have. Let me rephrase that. Starting off first, we have the reigning best in faction Votan player, Mr. Nicholas Olsen Johnson, bringing us as mere mortals the light of what he's calling slightly less beam death. Please enlighten us, Mr. Olsen Johnson.
Yeah, so I decided to go with Votan for this. They were like what I had the most experience with going into the tournament. People do know they did get some points changes in the Ministorum field manual. And because of that, you are at a tough situation where you want to bring troops, but you can't really justify the points for them now, especially with a double land fort build, because the land forts went up and the Zerkers went up. And the Grimnir went up and the Call. So what we're doing this time is we're like, all right, screw that noise. Grimnir's out of here. And here is the list. So it is Ymir, because Ymir is still insane. We got a Call with Grudge's End and a long list. That's the sniper guy. We got a Forge Master with the Warlord trait. It's the dude that makes the tanks work. Got 3 squads of 3 bikes with all the good upgrades, Scanner, Searchlight, High-Las, and then 3 squads of 5 Zerkers with Concussion Mauls. Little bit new in the list, I'm trying out 2 squads of 4 Thunderkin with Grav. These are the like weird little exosuit guys. With the introduction of strategic reserves being free, these guys are suddenly really good. They can just come in from the side of the board and shoot a bunch of Grav shots, which is really nice into this Marine meta. And then land forts, I'm still running 2 land forts just to like kind of get like a little more efficient points. One of the land forts has the little beams and the big beam, and then one has the bolts and the big beam. So it saves me 20 points, and it let me like kind of slot in another Thunderkin. I also kind of actually over the weekend really enjoyed the extra range on the bolt guns. They're 40-inch range in Ymir as opposed to 22 from the little beams. So yeah, I started on 3 CP. Something I was a little wary about, not having the interface echo from the Grimnir, but I actually found it was pretty manageable not having that extra CP every turn. You just can't go all out as much. So yeah, that is the list. Still got some beams, not as many.
Very cool. Moving on down the line, we've got what Nick has affectionately nicknamed my horde of rats of Gene Stealer cults. Now, if you want to hear me talk a lot about the details about why every different unit is generally in this list, check out our GSC episode. And if you want to read every single line, check out Best Coast Pairings. But I'll give you the rundown and talk about some of the tech pieces that have been moved in here. There's some stuff here that is new since that episode. Excuse me. All right. So we're still playing Custom Cult with Industrial Affinity, War Convoy, Custom to Turmoil, Alien Fury, which is to say ignore hit and ballistic skill penalties on industrial weapons, 6 up feeling no pain on the bikes, baby transhuman on everybody, and 4-inch pylon and consolidate on everybody. For HQs, we got the Icon Ward and the Primus. Troops, we got 3 squads of 5 Acolytes, one of which takes Excavate. Then we have 4 squads of 20 Neophytes, each of which has a different proficient planning. We've got Perfect Ambush. That's the pick a unit to get crossfire and exposed against within 12 on arrival. Lying in wait for the 3-inch deep strike. Trap Sprung for 3 dice, pick the 2 highest to charge, and from every angle for outflanking turn 1. All 4 squads have 20 dudes, 4 of which are seismic cannons, 1 of which is a leader. And then the Perfect Ambush, Lying in Wait, and Trap Sprung squads all have 4 Webbers, and the From Every Angle squad has 4 grenade launchers. Those top 3 also have shotguns, and the From Every Angle squad has auto guns, and then every one of the 4 squads has an icon in there as well. So they're all pretty beefy, doing different things. 4 support characters, the Nexos with Cranial Inlay, the Sanctus, the Kellamorph with Wormtooth Rounds, and then this is kind of the new one for me that I didn't talk about in the episode is the Reductus Sabotua with Oppressor's Bane. She's taking over for the Clamavis. We paid for that by downgrading our 10-man Neos to a 5-man Akos with Excavate. And she helps with vehicles at the end of the day is what she's really there for. There's a lot of cute potential to have her doing funny things like standing on objectives outside of 12 and being untargetable and stuff and applying tokens. She can apply tokens with Oppressor's Bane if she wants to, but she's really there to provide a little bit of anti-vehicle oomph. Playing into Lukas a whole bunch, I just got so damn tired of kill rigs and things of that ilk just being unkillable for me. And having something that says, boom, your vehicle dies is real nice. Also into Dark Angels, because a lot of this tech is for Dark Angels. Like I'm taking all the Webbers, I'm taking her. I need to kill land speeders. We'll talk about the Dark Angel matchup more later, but she's there largely to kill land speeders, storm speeders, and she does okay work into attack bikes as well. Then we got our 3 squads of 10 Jackals with 2 Flamers, 2 grenade launchers, 2 demo charges in each. And one of them came from below. That's the 14-inch move out of a blip, as I've talked about in the past. And then we got my boy pictured here, Moses, my Scout Sentinel. Was very excited with how this dude turned out paint-wise, so I had to throw up a photo of him. Come check it out on the YouTube if you want to see it. But this list feels real tuned. I'll talk more about it on the backside, but I'm very pleased with the tech choices that I ended up making. All right, Lucas, tell them about the boys.
The boys are back. The boys in green. The boys in black. Let's freaking go. We got Goffs. We got the Warlord, Beast Boss on Squigosaur with the B-side Mantle for +1 attack, 5 up feel no pain, and Prop Achille for +1 attack, +1 AP. We got a Brutal but Cunning Killer Claw Biker Boss. We have Zagstruck. We have 3 squads of 10 Beast Nagas, 3 squads of 10 Gretchen. I forgot to mark one of them as horrible gits in my list, so I just played them all as Golf Gretchen for this event. 2 squads of 5 Commandos with Claws, 3 squads of 3 Pigs with a Bomb Squig, squad of 10, squad of 8 Storm Boys with a Claw, squad of 5 normal Storm Boys, and then we got 3 rigs. They're all different. They all have Frazzle. 2 of them have Squiggly Curse. One of the Squiggly Curse guys has Squig Hide Tires for +1 move, +2 advance. And then the last guy also has Bite and Jaws. So yeah, just a big old wall of orc characters and dudes with choppers.
Did you come up with names for all your kill rigs yet?
Still got just 2 of them, my dude.
Okay.
Usually it's the red one and the purple one and the blue one.
Dang.
But yeah. So yeah, having a lot of success with this right now. Golf's MSU, everything just hits so hard that you can very often trade up with the majority of your army if you're able to make combat. Yeah, it's just a good time. Crumping for Gork.
Very cool. How are y'all feeling on the front end going into this event here? You know, we've all got our various lists. What were sort of your goals, expectations? What was going through your head on the front end, Lucas? Start with you.
I was feeling pretty confident. I think orcs definitely struggle with the cream of the crop of the meta right now. I think with things like Guard and some of the tankier marine factions like Dark Angels, it can be very hard to make any headway. Guard because they blow you up very quickly, and Dark Angels because they more or less don't care about your damage, which is pretty brutal. So I was a little worried about those matchups, but overall into like AOC factions in general, I felt very or what used to be AOC factions, Power Armor factions now feel very confident. Into any of the Xenos armies, they tend to have low armor, so all of my AP 1 and 2 adds up in a huge hurry, and so I felt solid into all the Xenos factions as well. Was a little worried about Custodes as well. Still don't have any data on that matchup, but in principle, high strength, multi-damage weapons with AP 1 and 2 tend to be good into Custodes, and I have a ton of that kind of stuff. So I'm also not overly concerned about that matchup. I think. Could be wrong. But yeah, overall, feeling pretty confident, just hoping to dodge a couple of those sketchier matchups. And I didn't end up dodging all of them, which we'll talk about in depth as we go through this episode here.
Very cool.
How about you, Nick?
How
How are you
Nick?
feeling going in with the dwarfs?
Sadly, I was just kind of lucky to be playing. I had to go back to the ER Wednesday morning before the event to something sort of related to my surgery, but also unrelated. Basically, I don't know really what was going on, but something flared up like my surgery site and caused a lot of swelling, which caused a lot of pain, which caused me to sleep for 3 days after that, basically, on painkillers. So the morning of, I was just like, feel a lot better. I'm going to go and see how I feel. I'm going to pay attention to my body. If I start like hurting or start feeling tired, I'm just going to like drop, because taking care of yourself is more important than playing 40K. So for me, my goal was to show up, execute, get some good reps with the army, because I haven't like played in a little bit, and just have a good time hanging out with everyone, because I was like super excited with all the people from Portland and like Salem and Washington coming down. I just wanted to see everyone. So my goal was just execute, play it well, try some things out, learn, and we'll see what happens. More on a meta side, looking at the lists there. I mean, we did a little bit of practice beforehand. I'm scared of things like World Eaters and Orcs and GSC. Those are matchups that I like really haven't figured out, because they're really good at pressuring primary while also just scoring way better secondaries than me. And then obviously something like Guard that can just outshoot me. So I was looking forward to trying out some of the things that like we'd learn in some of those games and seeing if I could come up with a different strategy in order to like clinch out a win against those factions. So yeah, that's basically how I was feeling going into the weekend. How about you, Tyler? How are you?
Very cool. Yeah. I've been planning this nonsense for generations. I was feeling real good. I'm scared of exactly this guy up here. I haven't figured out the Orcs matchup quite yet. The Reductus I knew was going to help somewhat, and I knew that there were some permutations where it felt okay, but like just going to try to dodge Lucas as long as I can. Also feeling very sketched out about the Dark Angels matchup. I had played that game earlier in the week and had made a bunch of tech decisions based on my fear of that. So that was really concerning to me. Guard is also always scary, but I feel like I'm figuring that one out pretty well at this point. So yeah, it was mostly like Lukas and Hank are terrifying, and then let's not mess anything up too bad personally, and I think we'll be all right. GSC are very strong right now, and I'm feeling increasingly tight with the way this faction plays. So let's get right into it. Starting off round one, we're playing Recover the Relics, everyone's 6th or 7th favorite mission. This is our Hammer and Anvil. Yeah, not ideal. Glad to get it out of the way round one, though. I'd much rather play this now than round 5. And we're going to start off with our boy Nick playing into some Chaos Knights. Lucas, you want to run us through his Chaos Knights list?
Sure. Yeah. House Herpetrax. Herpetrax, rather.
Yep.
We've got, let's see, it looks like 1 big knight and 10 small knights. Something like that. We got a Desecrator with Obsec and Aura of Terror with the funny laser beam and Blessing of the Dark Master. Let's go. That's a Chad loadout. We got 3 Brigands. We've got 2 Executioners with the CP refund. We've got a Stalker with the Helm of Doggies. Useless into Votan. Let's go. We got Mark of the Dread Knight on that bad boy. And then we got 2 squads of 2 Stalkers. And it looks like there's a fair number of Missile Hats sprinkled in there. Starting with 2 CP. How'd this game go?
So my opponent walked up to me and said, you're playing Votan. Well, how about you went and I'll go play Metroid Prime on my Switch? And I was like, what? Are you conceding? And he said, no, we'll play. I'm just kidding. And I was like, I mean, yeah, like, I know it's a doomed matchup and I'm sorry, but like, if you don't want to play the game, we don't have to, but also like, I'd love to get to know you and play. So yeah, that was pretty much how the game opened up.
You didn't hit him with the funny speech?
No, I mean, yeah. So we went through like what our armies did. He seemed just like pretty dejected, which fair. This Lucas and I played this matchup a number of times, and it's super unfair to Chaos Knights. He deployed like everything in the line behind walls, and I deployed aggressively as well because there was no charges. We like made the midfield into a bit of a mess with our terrain. And turn 1, I just killed a big knight from behind walls, pass to him. He moves up the board. I start charging and punching and shooting things, and like all of his knights are dead by turn 3. The Chaos Knight matchup, again, I've said it like 3 times already. It's super unfair with Votan just because they punch up super well. They're pretty hard for Chaos Knights to kill. Like they don't have a good answer to land forts. Zerkers are super inefficient for them to shoot. They probably want to be shooting autocannons at them or punching them, but like the chain cannons are really bad at killing them. And the Zerkers just delete a knight every time they make contact. Secondaries wise, really good in the Chaos Knights. You take Ancestors, you take Bring It Down, and on this mission you take Banners, and I got an 100. Yeah, not like too much to say. My opponent was named, trying to run here, Sean. Really nice guy. I think playing on Deep Strike Gang from Seattle. So it was cool to play against him. I played against a few members of that team. He was super nice. I think something he could have done, like if he was like more like he was already kind of going into that game like mentally like I've lost. I think what would have been super cool using the new strat reserves was taking the big knight and putting it off the board. Because that thing can at least come in and like Diamonis could maybe spike with Smeltas and maybe kill a land fort. Also, it means I don't just get to go first and kill a knight for free from behind walls with no recourse. So that's something that I talked to Jason Bird about, who also plays Chaos Knights right now. And he's talking about he always reserves his big knight into shooting armies. And I think that's like a pretty interesting idea going forward. So you obviously don't get that turn 1 threaten with it being on the line and like running up and trying to punch things. But I mean, usually they're just going to screen it with like 10 guardsmen. So, yeah, you know, might as well.
Did you end up reserving your Gravkin in this matchup, or did you start them on the table?
I reserved them because of, I mean, so my default with them right now is strat reserving them. I haven't played with that unit enough to know like when do I start it on the board and when do I not. Mm-hmm. And I figured with it being Hammer and Anvil, like, and how much terrain we had on the board, that the midfield was just going to be tons of ruins. And those guys only move 5 and they only have 22 inch range. So I figured, okay, it's going to be a lot easier to cut angles by them like walking in from the midfield or like waiting till turn 3 and showing up in his DZ. Because by turn 3, he's not going to have that much screening. And I'm going to show up and just like bring the hammer down. And that's it. Game's over. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. I think a squad showed up turn 3 in his DZ and killed some knights that were hiding behind a wall like that. So, yeah, that's it. Yeah, 147. Good round 1. Very favored.
Cool beans.
So,
very nice. Yeah. Moving on down to my round 1, I am playing into Eldar, featuring old school Hail of Doom. Haven't seen this stuff in a minute, but let me tell you, I'm starting to see it a lot more. You want to run us through this this Hail of Doom list deck? You know Eldar.
Yeah, dude. I used to be an Eldar player back in the day. So Hail of Doom, we got 3 Warlocks on bike. That's a squad of 3.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. A squad of 3 Warlocks on bikes. I got a Farseer on bike. He has Baharoth and Janzar and Karandros.
That is correct. This motherfucker has 3 Phoenix Lords. Let's go.
Can you take multiple Phoenix Lords into detention?
You absolutely can.
Sick, dude. All right. I've never seen more than one. That's super cool. 5 Corsairs, 5 Rangers, 10-10 5 Dire Avengers, 5-5 Banshees, 5 Scorps, a Warlock on foot, 3 Shining Spears, 3 Shroud Runners, and 10 28-point Swooping Hawks. How'd this game go?
Yeah, this was really interesting. Now, I didn't include a lot of the nitty gritty here. Eldar have a lot of nitty gritty, so feel free to check out BCP if you want to see exactly what he was doing, because it's a pretty cool list. I walked into this matchup feeling pretty damn good because GSC are really good into Eldar. Eldar are an army that has a lot of, oh, well, I'm going to be uninteractable and hide really well, and he doesn't even have any transports, so there is really no hiding. Especially when the terrain looks something like this. Here's your first look at what Rosehammer terrain is like if you're watching the YouTube. So this table, what's really one of the really cool things about this, and we'll talk about the terrain a lot at the end, I think, is that there's a lot of straight pieces in addition to a lot of L's. So on this table, you each had one of these just utterly massive straight walls that was like 16 inches long with windows, and then a smaller one that was like 10 inches long with windows, and then like a pretty normal sized L with windows on like the short end on the bottom floor and the long end on the top floor. And then a really big crate, and then 2 forests. These little green squares are forests. And with all the straight pieces, it's really hard to hide from GSC in particular. The L's are being played as you have to physically touch the wall to see through it, so you can get real deep in there. Which makes hiding in them very easy. But this is how we ended up deploying. And as you can see, he's parked all of his army basically behind this singular giant straight piece. I set up, he put a squad of Rangers behind that L on the bottom right there. And he set up his Scorpions and Carandaras on that, behind that top straight piece on the right. I parked Moses. He put down the Rangers, and then I parked Moses. One of the things that you can do with forward deployers, I think people forget about, is if you put them at exactly 9 inches off the line on this one, you can fully zone off one of the 2 objectives to prevent your opponent from deploying on it, which means in this case that he couldn't have anyone on there. So he could only have Rangers on the other squad side. He'd love to have Carandaras and the Scorpions on that objective because the Carandaras is OBSEC, makes the Scorpions OBSEC, which would make it really hard for me to take both from him. But because he put the Rangers out first, then the Sentinel fully blocks the other one, then Carandaras or the Scorpions don't get on the objective. And now if I kill the 5 Rangers top 1, he doesn't get CP bottom 1, which is exactly what happened. I ended up going first, and I measured real quick and saw that even after getting excavated, that giant wall that he's hiding behind is within 26 of my deployment zone, which, like, yeah, of course it is. But that is unfortunately the funny number through excavate for my bikes. So my bike squad went up 26, touched that with the quads, and then shot and killed like 5 or 6 Hawks with just the flamers. And those guys are 28 points a model. So that felt real bad. That's like the entire bike squad's worth of points. Just poof. The other bike squads ran up. One of them shot and killed the Banshees, and then the other one did a little bit of damage to the Scorpions. Weren't able to quite finish them, but then both squads of bikes charged the Scorpions, which meant that the squad of bikes that was up and touching to see through to see the Hawks couldn't be seen by the Hawks, couldn't be seen back anymore because they were back, which meant that on this turn, he had to basically full expose in order to deal with me. And that's what I was really hoping for. He comes out in force, throws everything he can at me. But because of the way the bikes are tendrilled and he being so MSU, he's not able to actually get the job done anywhere. I end up with 2 squads of bikes at 1 dude, and then the squad of bikes at the top has got like 5 dudes. I did maximal disrespect, pick up a dice, look him in the eyes, and tell him that I was going to roll a 1 on morale, and then do it. So that one bike lived, and then the next one got auto passed, and then the 5-man was chilling. So all 3 squads of bikes were all tendrilled back to the banner. They all resurrected D3 quads, which was very silly. And then drop turn. Webbers are silly into Eldari because they do like 6 mortal wounds per activation to a 10-man squad of Dire Avengers, and we're just at the end of the day, he ends up killing through a good amount of my stuff, but it's just not able to get it done. Secondaries wise, Brood Swarm is an auto 15. Ambush ends up only being a 13 here because I ran out of things to kill. And Grind Them Down, I took this one, which is a first for me. I hadn't taken Grind yet, but I've been wanting to for a while. That was a really good take because it was a bunch of free CP and a 12, which is the same points I would have gotten out of R&D. Banners on this mission is also generally a good take, but I knew that with all the Phoenix Lords, he just had too much ability to tear those down. So Grind just seemed like a safer, let's just get this over with kind of situation. And also he had a fair amount of MSU. So that worked out well for me. Warp Ritual worked out pretty well for him. He got a 7 on it. And then his Warlocks were dead, so he couldn't quicken anymore. So he just threw it. The Farseer was chilling there and then died. RBD worked out terribly for him. I'm not sure what he was planning to be scoring that with. Over on my side, maybe some of his Dire Avengers coming in from Strat Reserve, but that was real easy to screen. And then Prisoners is obviously a 15. This list starts with, I think it's 170 prisoner wounds at this point, 167, and then starts getting them back in droves after that. So that's an auto 15 for him. And yeah, final score 95 to 57. Felt like a pretty terrible matchup for the Eldar, but fun to practice execution. Alrighty. Moving on up, we got Lukas playing into Votan. Everyone's playing list that Nick knows about. Nick, talk to us about this sick Votan list.
All right, dude. I'm a little familiar with the Votan. That's also a sick piece of art. Very cool.
Yeah, what is that from? Is that in the Codex?
No, that's fan art.
It's real cool. Oh, awesome.
All right. We're playing Ymir, the best sub-faction. This guy's got a Forge Master with the upgrades. It's got a high call with a long list. No Grudges End. Doesn't look like it. We got a squad of 20 Hearthkin Warriors with a med pack and a scanner. Maybe they're tanky. I don't know. Got 10 Hearthguard. Those are the Terminators with Warp Strike. And then we have 3x3 bikes with the minigun scanner searchlight and 2 land fortresses with all the beams.
Yeah, this was definitely an interesting game. I'm glad we did a Votan practice rep the week before, Nick, because it gave me a lot of good insights on how to play this one. So let's go look at the table because that's the first.
Just to clarify, there are no Zerks in this list?
There are 0 Zerkers in this list.
No.
Fascinating.
There's 450 points spent on Terminators.
For sure.
Don't worry, Nick. It gives them more agency over the game. The board state.
Get to control the plays.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, picture looked like it got a little bit cut off, but we can see here the Rosehammer terrain also playing a big impact on this game. Those larger straight pieces just being so useful in hiding, so useful for hiding, rather, against armies that are more shooting based that have limited mobility, like Votan, like Iron Hands, that kind of thing. Just the ability to, especially on Hammer and Anvil, just wall off most of my deployment zone and make it unshootable. So we can see here, I think I won the defender roll-off, and I honestly forget. It doesn't really matter because there's no midfield objectives, but I was mostly able to just make all 3 of my objectives completely safe, take my defensive secondaries, and because Votan don't have a good defensive secondary game plan, you can see he went with Assassination, Lay Claim, and no prisoners. The onus was entirely on him to come to my side of the board, and then when he started realizing that on turn 2, I was able to just pounce on him. And all it really takes is 1 or 2 turns of locking down the tanks with pigs and or storm boys to basically render them ineffective. Because you just chew on all their infantry and bikers while the tanks are tagged, and then you can just clean up the tanks from there. You don't even necessarily have to kill them if you're playing something like World Leaders or Orcs. as long as you take care of everything else and score all the points you can, Votann can be a pretty easy game. Yeah, and mostly that is being facilitated by the fact that it's so easy to hide. One thing I've started doing against shooting armies that are slower, like Votann and Iron Hands, is you reserve 2 of the kill rigs, especially the 2 that don't have the movement upgrade. So they come in from a board edge. If you want to play it slower, one comes in on turn 2 in ramming speeds, then the next one comes in on turns 3 in ramming speeds. Or if you want to go for an overload play, you bring them both in on turn 2, ramming speed one of them, the other just goes for a 9 rerolling. It's still a 50% chance. And then you just try to threat overload. That way you also decrease congestion in your deployment zone, because that's a real thing with this army, with all the cavalry and vehicles and stuff like that. But overall, a great game to Alex. He is a viewer of the podcast, which is really cool. This was one of the first times that someone, there's been other times at tournaments where someone's come up and said that they've watched our podcast, which is always fun to see. But it was great to bump into someone round 1 who was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of TNG, which was super sweet. And yeah, Alex was a great opponent, just great attitude, friendly guy. We had a great game with each other, helping one another out and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just super happy with how this game turned out, and that a more defensive game plan ended up working out against Votann. It's really great to have the defensive secondaries against an army like this to force them to come toward you so you can pounce on them. I found that strategy very, very useful, very effective.
Yeah, I think that's really what takes orcs from being I mean, I don't want to talk about tiers too much, but from being a very good army to being an excellent army is their ability to switch between those 2 play styles. It is incredibly annoying to play into.
Yep.
Cool. So good round 1 for everybody. Got 3 down. 15 to go.
Yes, sir.
So moving on into round 2, we're playing Tear Down Their Icons. One of people's actual favorite missions, better known as Bomber Mission. Don't worry, we're not just playing through the pack all weekend, just day 1, because these are some good stuff. Starting off, we're playing Nick into House Herpetrax again.
Yes.
All right, Lucas,
Slayer, dude.
Tell us about this. Someday we'll play into something else. All right, Lucas, tell us about this House Herpetrax list, and talk to us about how it compares to the previous one.
All right, so the second war dog that Nick has to put down this morning is also playing House Herpetrax. He's got 2 big knights because he's a Chad. We've got the Desecrator with Aura of Terror and Mark of the Dread Knight. And that's it? Okay, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
And we've got a Rampager.
What are those things? Remind us what those things do.
The Aura of Terror is the harder leadership and dread checks within 12, and the Mark of the Dread Knight is the 6 if no pain becomes a 5-up. And then we've got a Rampager with Eager for the Kill, +1 attack and reroll once to hit. The Teeth That Hunger, let's go, dude. And the Blessing of the Dark Master. Okay, so we've got like a very angry Rampager.
What do these things do? This is hilarious.
Knight Daedalus is +1 attack, reroll once to hit. Teeth That Hunger, I honestly don't even know. I think it like gives him extra sweep attacks. It makes him sweep 3 instead of
this is
sweep
the guy
2.
that can get like 36 attacks or something.
Yeah. And then Eager for the Kill is +1 advance and charge, and then +1 attack while within your opponent's DZ. He's got 1 Huntsman that I'm not sure why it's not a Stalker, but it's a Huntsman with a Melt-A-Gun and Advance and Shoot. We've got a Carnivore with Helm of Dogs and Blood Shield, and we've got 2 Stalkers with Mirror of Fates and 3 Stalkers with Pyro Throne to make one of them a Psyker. So yeah, looks like 5 Stalkers, basically 6 Stalkers, a Carnivore, and 2 Big Knights.
Can you, for anyone out there who plays Chaos Knights who may not really know, why is it that a Huntsman is just objectively worse than that guy being another Stalker, despite having the identical loadout?
Yeah, so a Huntsman is basically an Imperial Warglaive. It has to have a Melt-A-Gun, and it has to have... So a Huntsman has to have the Melt-A-Lance and the sword, and... Alternatively, you could just build a Stalker with a Melt-A-Gun and a sword. The only reason you would want to have it as a Huntsman, which I now realize, is because it has the Imperial weaponry, so it can take a Melt-A-Gun up top. That would be the one reason you would want to take it as a Huntsman. But generally, you don't take that Melt-A-Gun. It's just better to have it as a Stalker for Terror Shades access.
I think he was taking that because it can advance and shoot. So it's just like the idea is it has...
Just try to get another Melt-A-Gun in range?
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I see that now. But
learn something
yeah,
new every
in
day.
general, huntsmen are just the same points as stalkers, but you lose a keyword.
Very cool. Alrighty, so talk to us about this
yeah.
game, Nick.
I mean, there you go. That's the game. So I've already talked about the Chaos Knight versus Votan matchup. This was against local Alex Henderson, who I have played 3 times now. Once with Necrons and now twice with Votan. I played him at Slaneshmas actually. Super great guy. He was there helping us set up the tables on Friday night. His knights look super sick. He's got these like super cool like name tags for all of them too to like show you like which buffs they have, which like super appreciate. I love when people do that. Very annoying when you don't know like which things are on like packs are on which thing. And yeah, he got the first turn and he got the Fender roll off, which is pretty good. So he was able to set up a pretty defensive like ruin in the middle that he could hide behind and like just sit there and score. So I was like, all right, it's on me to come to him. Take an Ancestors, bring it down banners. This is another pretty good banners mission for Votan because you're actually able to go up and banner that top objective turn 1. Because the Forge Master can advance in action, so you can launch out 8 and hit the banner there. So yeah, he went first. This is where he messed up though. We went over everything my army does. He's played against me before. I'm like, you know about judgment, you know about beams, you know about, void armor, yada yada yada. He's like, yep. And I'm like, cool. And he lines up like most of his knights in this channel. And I'm like, okay. And I start doing some measuring and I'm like, so I can beam 4 knights with 1 land train? And he's like, that may have been a mistake. And
Is it the beam train or is it the bolt train?
So the beam train gets 1 big beam downtown through 4 knights,
Sure.
and then little beams through 3 knights.
God.
So I just go, yeah, that was pretty much the game.
Does
the
that
other
one beam train kill all 4 knights?
No, it did 12 damage to the one on his home objective, so it lived on 2. It obliterated the one in the middle pretty hard. It did like 8 damage. It did like 12 damage to a big knight. It did like 12 to a little, and then the little beams finish off the little, and hurt the big, which then dies to my other shooting. So we lose 2 little knights and a big knight like instantly. Because the land train does like 50 damage to 4 knights basically. So yeah, which is again why this is a bad matchup for Chaos Knights. My whole goal in these games is to put my land forts in such a way, like in these channels, to force them to line up to shoot as many shots as possible on the land fort, fail to kill it, and then I beam them back. But he just lined up for me anyways. And he immediately realized, he's like, I should have deployed my terrain like way more spread out so I can like come at you in like a spread out like fan pattern, like not in the lines. And I'm like, yeah. Because the last time we played on Dawn of War. So he was able to just spread out. This time we played on corners. So he hadn't actually really been hit by the beams that much. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you know it on paper. You're like, yeah, you draw lines through my guys. And then you like move your guys and you're like, oh, you draw lines through my guys. Like, ooh, that's bad. So yeah, he was a great sport about it. We had a great game. It was just one of those things where it's like, that's a huge mistake. You let one unit do like, 900 points of damage to you instantly. Game's over. And yeah, 99-47. That's it.
Already.
That's the game.
Good stuff. Jeez. Okay. Cool. Round 2. I'm playing with my boy James Lee. Played this guy before. We played. It was round 5 of the round 5 of the Best in Tabletop Open. Was my last round. Was into this guy. Playing his Custodes when I was playing Kraken at the time. He's a real cool dude, real chill guy. He has just beaten Donald Plummer round 1. So like, this dude knows what he's doing. Donald probably the best Tau player at the event, and someone that, even though I think Tau is a really good matchup for me, I'm real concerned about. Honestly, though, I know he's a big concern for Lukas, so I was really hoping that he would take care of this guy for me. But so Donald's down because this guy took him out. Lukas, you want to run us through his Custodes build that he's got? It's Solar Watch.
Yeah, we got Trajan, we've got a Bike Captain, we've got 2 single Alaris Terminators, 5 Wardens, 4 Venetarii. Each squad has 2 spears and 2 with the buckler, 3 squads of 3 bikers, 5 sisters with flamers, and 2 acolytes. So it looks like Custodes MSU.
Just 2 squads of 3 bikers, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Sort of your typical Custode stuff. The bike captain has to be slightly less durable in this Solar Watch list because he has to pick up the advance and charge warlord trait relic. I don't know.
Sally Fourth or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that is, which is very scary for Custodes. This Custodes list, however, is not particularly scary to me. Custodes in general are not that durable into GSC, particularly the bikes. And the Venetarii with spears are just going to disappear real quick. Even the pistol bucklers can only do so much. The wardens are a pain. I'm just going to ignore those all day, but everything else is just going to die really, really quickly. And because we're playing Bomber Mission, I've also got a pretty big advantage on him in terms of primary and secondary. So here's what the table ends up looking like. This is a different Rosehammer table. We've got one of those medium straight pieces like from last time, one of the very small straight pieces that's about 8 inches long. And then we each get a smaller L and a bigger L, or is it 2 smaller Ls? I don't remember. Yeah, I think it's a smaller L and a bigger L. They look the same size? They might be the same size. Yeah, 2 Ls. One of the things that's really interesting about this particular train set is it sort of solves the forest in the middle problem in that you can just fit 2 things in the middle because nothing is 6 inches, everything is 4 inches. And with you can't be on top of the token, you physically cannot block off the entire objective from someone else's ruin. So there were a lot of games like this where we both had an L on the center objective that we could hide behind, which was really interesting. Now, mind you, his L is such that he can't be on it and be unchargeable, and also just he's a little bit further back, which is nice than mine is. But kind of an interesting thing that kind of resolves one of the complaints about player place terrain. I think it solves one problem with another, but that's a story for another time. So yeah, we both got pretty defensive terrain setups here. As you can see, I'm sort of trying to build this little channel so that I can easily get to the top and the bottom, and he's sort of trying to have these 2 separate enclaves. He ends up going first here, which I love going second with this army. I love it so much when I get to play into matchups where it's good, which is like this one, because those bikes moving 14 inches forwards after I know which units in my opponent's army can even shoot them is just very strong. So I start this game, you can't really see, but Moses is there on the center objective behind my ruin. Mm-hmm. So he has to come out and do something about him turn 1. So he sends out a squad of Venetarii, and then my 14-inch moving bikes zip along the bottom of the table to go after those sisters on that bottom right objective, which is the only thing he's got there. So now he has no way to deal with them, and they're guaranteed to get to deal with those sisters next turn, which is real great. So they do good stuff there. And then he tries to eventually get into the top left, and I just kind of deal with it. Drop in, shoot a whole bunch of things. There's not a lot of stuff that's all too crazy about how this ends up playing out because his stuff is just really vulnerable. And Venetarii with lots of pistols are scary on Auspex. Venetarii with 2 pistols are not scary on Auspex. So I'm able to sort of drop in and just shoot a bunch of stuff away here. The secondary game works out real well. I max all my stuff because they're really good secondaries. He took behind enemy lines here, which ends up working out pretty darn well for him because I'm just not quite able to zone off my entire really big DZ while applying maximal pressure. So he's able to slip some solo Alaris into my backfield, which is fine. They're going to get some points out of it. They don't hit their charges because they're 8s. It's just not going to happen every time. And as you can see, I was even able to plant a couple of bombs because he just runs out of units to go after my stuff. The Webbers in this matchup are pretty useless, but they do okay. It's basically 2 mortals, not even. It's like 1 mortal and a half per activation, which did all right. Definitely a matchup where the Flamers would have been better, but I think it's totally fine because it's really solid. The fight for the center is really interesting because he's got like a solo Alaris chilling in the center with Trajan at one point. So there's a lot of I don't like Trajan. I'm not going to kill Trajan. Trajan doesn't die this game. It's just not worth the resources to deal with him. He doesn't pose enough of a problem, and he's not personally OBSEC. So there was a lot of let's kill. There's a moment where I had to kill the dude who's OBSEC or just avoid him at least, but we're charging both, piling out of Trajan to avoid getting heroicked. to get more OBSEC on the objective, and just sort of letting Trajan take his pound of flesh over and over and over again, because at the end of the day, it's just not enough for me to be concerned. Whereas once I take over his backfield, he's just sort of out of luck. So good stuff overall. James took it like a champ. He played pretty darn well. Final score ends up being 97-50, and the GSC are feeling pretty good. Lucas, meanwhile, gets to play into friend of the show, Josh Bagwell. He's playing NIDS. I happen to know a thing or two about NIDS, so I'll walk you through this. He's playing Jormungandr, which is dense cover outside of 12, outside of 18 if you're a monster. And then he's also got OBSEC on all his boys, 5-man OBSEC on all the monsters, I should say. 5-man OBSEC on the Exocrine and the Hive Tyrant. Speaking of, he's got a Hive Tyrant with Shard Gullet, which is spicy. Got a Neurothrope. He's got 3 Tyrant Guard. I actually loaned him these Tyrant Guard models. So Lucas is playing into some models he's faced a couple times before. He's got the Parasite of Mortrex. Wow, that is some tech right there. He gave him Alien Cunning because, like, of course you do. You want OBSEC 5. It's real useful. But then he also gave it the Jormungandr Relic, which is Infrasonic Roar, which, let me double check that I know what this does. At the end of your movement phase, select one enemy unit within 12 inches and roll 3 dice. If it meets or beats that unit's leadership characteristic, then until the start of the next movement phase, they cannot perform actions. And if they're performing any actions, they immediately fail. So it doesn't kill OBSEC the way that Clamavus does, but it does kill actions, which is real useful into Grots. It is within 12, but the Parasite goes real far, and it's at the end of the movement phase, so you can do it off the Deep Strike or off the Parasite just flying across the table. Real good into Chaos Knights, pretty good into Orcs, kind of real good into Tau, which I think is what it's really here for, because the ability to tell units they can't fire Marker Lights next turn, while maybe you tag some other things that apply Marker Lights, can really, while you have all this dense cover, can really decrease the output of a Tau army. So that's a really cool tech. He's got 3/3/1 Carnifexes. All of them have enhanced senses for +1 ballistic skill, Spore Cysts for light cover all the time, and heavy venom cannons, and I assume Talons. Cool. He's got an Exocrine to provide some more long-range fire support, and he's got a Hive Crone. What? What did this thing do? Did he explain his rationale for it?
Oh, you're getting drooled on, buddy.
Yeah. What did Josh have to say about the Hive Crone? What's it doing here? I'm curious.
I think the idea is that he has plenty of other firepower that's good into elite targets and vehicles. So just being able to splash in a little something that actually does some work against hordes with those flamers and like the spine banks it has or whatever. It was nice to be able to like pick up a 10-man squad, which, you know, the rest of his firepower is all like AP3 damage 3, AP4 damage 4 kind of stuff. So that was his justification, and I honestly see it.
Very cool.
But yeah, do I have control over we can go to the next slide. We can kind of look at the table here. This is a game where Josh won Defender and slammed a Force in the middle, and then he also ended up going first. Because this was a shooting army with limited mobility, I did my normal Reserve 2 kill rigs. Ended up not being super great this game. Because of where the terrain was positioned, Josh did a great job of setting up the terrain so that when I brought guys in from Deep Strike, it wasn't actually going to be feasible to make a charge because, you know, the rig can't go through the terrain. So that was definitely awkward.
This is well-positioned stuff.
Definitely didn't appreciate that until I started bringing my guys in and they couldn't really come in anywhere. But he also played it super aggressive, which tends to get you blown up against Orcs. And that is what happened in this game. He moved forward pretty aggressively, made some early charges, and then I just threw my whole army into the middle of the table there. And I think on the first turn, I killed the Parasite and 4 Carnifexes, and then tagged a whole bunch of other stuff. So his crackback turn was he started losing some momentum, and then on the following turn, I killed the Tyrant, the Neurothrope, and 2 more Carnifexes, and he was basically out of gas. So that can definitely happen against Orcs. Is you try to take them on too early, and you can definitely get crumped in a big hurry. But it was fun because Josh was wearing our last name Bunga, first name Unga shirt, so we just both turned on Monkey Brain for this for this match and just ran at each other and had a huge scrum in the middle, which was a lot of fun. You can see, I think Josh was one of the only people. It might have been the only person at the tournament to score a 12 against me. And he did it twice in a row. That offset is actually pretty gangster. There was I was so focused on like lining up the charge phase or fight phase ordering and when units were gonna fight and how to protect my kill a claw boss that I looked down at the end of my fight phase and I'm like, wait, he still has like 1 2 wound Carnifex on the middle objective and I have no OPSEC on it. So I guess that's a 12 for you, my brother. And then that happened again on turn 3 because I just don't think about the objectives, only kill. But yeah, secondaries ended up being pretty brutal.
It's got a good secondary. Like this kind of build might have serious play.
Definitely, yeah. Trying to make ritual and banners work when you're an army of monsters is just like kind of awkward. So yeah, he definitely ran out of gas very early and then couldn't really accomplish any of his secondaries. But it was a fun game. It was a big scrap. It was great to play against Josh. I don't think I've played against him yet. He's a great dude and had a huge blast playing this game with him. So thank you for the game, Josh. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, turns out the Beast Saga stuff, getting +1 to hit, +1 to wound, some with the stratagem use against all these monsters, all the AP 1 and 2 en masse, just super effective into Tyranids and cutting through their armor. So yeah, felt pretty confident about this game.
Very cool. You said the Parasite died turn 1. What did he do with her? I feel like she's a really good late game piece that I would be trying to protect if I were playing this.
The issue is he only has 2 or 3 infantry units. So to raise banners, they have to come forward a fair amount. So the Tyrant Guard raised on his home field, and then she raised on that bottom right objective.
Makes sense.
So she was just barely on that objective, and then the Storm Boys that are behind the red pigs there in that little ruin rocketed over 18 inches and just made a charge on her.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she can definitely, she's resilient, but not against Choppas. No. Turns out no rerolls to hit, -1 to hit doesn't really matter if I have 40 attacks.
Makes sense. Very cool. All right. Well, props to Josh. How did he end up doing this event? Did we see?
I don't know if he stuck around for day 2. I didn't see him very much on Sunday.
Oh, no, I know he didn't because he gave me back my Tyrant Guard at the end of day 1. And then I was carrying them around all day 2. Everyone's like, why are there Tyrant Guard in your list? They're not. Don't worry. Read BCP. All right. Cool. Very nice.
Building the wall.
Dude, that like Ennis is always saying he really wishes that he could for one tournament play Leviathan and supplement Crusher with the new book. And my version of that is I really want to play the Tyrant Guard on the Aegis Defense line. That's all I want. Just one event. Let me do it. It'd be so funny. It wouldn't be nearly as good as Levy Crusher with the new book, I promise. All right. Anyway, moving on to round 3. We're playing Nick's favorite mission, Data Scry Salvage.
Yes, sir.
And this is our last going at the pack, I promise. We're starting off with Nick playing into a little known figure in the Pacific Northwest by the name of Hankelus Adams. Lucas, you want to run us through Hank's guard list?
Good old Hank.
I believe so.
So Nick's playing against Born Soldiers. We've got a Cadian command squad with the flag that you will always see. And they've got superior tactical training for Perfectus orders. Yes. We've got the Lord Solar without his Warlord trait. Interesting. We've got a Gatekeeper with Steel Commissar, Master Tactician.
That's the
redeploy. And the Gatekeeper relic. We have 4 squads of Cadians. We have 5 Bulgrin with Mauls. We got 5 Bulgrin with Grenadier gauntlets. Both squads have 3 invulns and 2 2-up armors. 10 Kazarkin with the teleport shit. 2 squads of 1 Sentinel. 2 squads of 3 mortars. 2 Rogaldorns. One's got mostly anti-tank weapons, and the other one has anti-infantry weapons and ignores cover. And it starts on 1 CP.
One thing, too, I want to point out is important is Hank did elect to put the med pack and the Ogrin bodyguard and the Cadian command squad, which makes them ludicrously tanky because that Ogrin is like, what, T5, 6 wounds, 4 up invuln, -1 damage, 5 feel no pain. And then if you kill him for a CP, he can come right back along with, D3 models. He's one of the D3. Weird thing, question. So one thing that was coming up in our game, which I was wondering, toughness characteristic. How does it work if you have mixed toughness characteristic in the unit? Is it highest toughness
Are you
characteristic?
talking about with the command squad?
Yeah.
I think they have a rule that says that Ogren has to take wounds first, and until he's dead, you use the Ogren's toughness characteristic.
Okay. That's what I thought. I was always, it was like, I know back in the day it used to be like total
Majority
like,
toughness, yeah.
yeah, majority toughness, yeah. Which makes that super annoying because now these T3 guardsmen are actually T5 for a little bit.
Yep.
Which when that command squad has to go sit in the middle for a point, hard to kill. A lot of people elected not to take that, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. So this game, playing Hank, obviously guard is really scary because guard is one of the like bad matchups. They outshoot me. We're both shooting armies and they're better at it. Secondary wise as well, they have inflexible and boots, which boots is like a free 10 into me if he doesn't. Yeah, it's like a free 10. He can like get to the middle with that command squad after he like kills me. And then inflexible is just a free 15. Like there's nothing you can do about it. Secondary wise, I'm not denying his secondaries. The last time I played into Hank, he was playing guard with like the pseudo release, so like before Dorns were out and before Lord Solar was out, and Kazurkin were out but hard to find and didn't have Lord Solar rerolls, so they weren't that good. And he was playing like 11 tanks, so that was a lot easier secondary wise. I just took like Bring It Down and Ancestors, and like what else? Actually, I don't think I took Ancestors. I think I took like some weird defensive ones. Anyways, I had Mental last time. Mental's gone, so I don't have that anymore. We are playing on Data Scry though, so I did elect to take Bring It Down because I'm like, he's gonna be shooting me with the tanks. The Dorns are each worth 3 points. The tank commander's worth 2, and the Sentinels are really easy for 1. And I probably need to be killing some of the tanks to win this game. If they're just sitting there shooting me, I've lost. It's the easiest kill secondary. I did take Ancestors because I thought like, okay, I'm going to be killing tanks, so killing tanks with Judgment gets me 2 points every time I do that, and I'm probably going to be killing other things with Judgment, gets me 2 points every time I do that. That was a bit of a mistake. His no prisoners was actually pretty high. I should have gone with no prisoners just because I didn't really think about how many just like little rats would survive with like, you know, a model left with a Judgment and subtract 1 from my score later, which was super annoying. And I also elected for Prospects. So Prospects is a very mediocre Votan secondary. That is, you can do an action on any no man's land objective, provided there are no enemy units on it. It's got the ancient action wording, but you get 3 points each time you do it. And Data Scry is basically the only mission this secondary is viable on, especially when you're playing into a more defensive army. Like if I'm playing into World Eaters or Orcs or GSC, nah, this secondary is terrible. But I figured with Guard, Hank doesn't want to come near me because if he wants to come stand on objectives so I can't do the action, cool. I'll shoot whatever on that objective. I'll charge it with Zerkers. Now you're giving me a slingshot, which is bad because if I get a big enough charge, I might go in and tag your stuff now, which then lets me move up the board a little bit more. I also figured because of like Data Scry being a hold 2, hold 3, he'd want to be pretty careful with his OBSEC because that's like the only way. Like this, he could lose this game if I pin him into his DZ. So I didn't think he'd just be wanting to throw away Cadian squads to deny me secondary points because then I just kill them and I'm like, cool, dude, no primary for you. He wants those coming out in the late game when I don't have many shots left. So this game was pretty interesting. I was pretty happy with how I deployed the terrain. He got Defender. So he put down like a small L on one of the objectives close to me. And to like make it so I couldn't put a staging ground up there. But I took a big L on the, what is it, like objective on the bottom right, closer to him. Which that big L, I measured it. So my land forts and my DZ, which were hidden, I like basically set up my terrain. So like I cut off all angles turn 1. And I also cut off the Barbican's key teleport. Like he could teleport and shoot the land trains, but he'd be coming into Auspex range, which that's no good. So the land forts could advance 1 and then advance for a CP and go into that L that then lets me start charging Zerkers into his DZ, and he can't shoot into the L either. So I was like super defensive. We're going for like a turn 2 beta strike kind of thing. Yeah, I got first turn, which just let me like build my bubble more, let me set up that beta strike I was talking about, let me get some prospects. He doesn't really do a lot turn 1. Interesting thing this game is he strat reserved 2 squads of guardsmen, and then when he went second, he used the redeploy to put 2 more squads in strat reserves. So all the guardsmen squads are in strat reserves, which is super annoying because on Data Scry, what that means is that top objective, he can just come in from his board edge in like the late game and just keep being like 10 Cadians, my objective, 10 Cadians, my objective. And Cadians can transhuman, which means my little shots are going to actually be not that effective into them. I strat reserved one squad of Gravkin. I was worried about not having anything to hit the button in the back, and I was like, I know I'm gonna lose this game if I don't hit that button every turn. So I put a squad of like Gravkin on the board back there to hit the button, and then if he started coming out, they could like walk out and shoot. What was it? Yeah, he elected to come towards me with some Bullgrin to clear me off of like that L that I was talking about because he's like, I need to get you some points so that you don't get like a 12 next turn because I had some bikes on both the objectives. And he didn't just want to expose a Dorn to shoot them because he didn't want me shooting him back. I used the Bullgrin as a springboard for 2 squads of Zerkers, and I was able to get a squad of Zerkers to kill them, and the other squad rolled a big charge, and after the Bullgrin died, piled in and consolidated into like his home field. So they touch his objective, so he can't do the action. They touched a squad of mortars, so they were forced to use the fallback and shoot order instead of take aim. And they touched a Dorn. For some reason, my mind like completely blanked here. I like could have based the Dorn if I charged a little bit differently, but I'm like, yeah, I'll touch the Dorn. He's like, cool, the Dorn's gonna pile in and touch the terrain, so I can still shoot through it. I'm like, yeah, that was just dumb. Anyways, so almost super sick. And I also kind of like full exposed this turn because he did give me a Dorn to shoot at in a force, and I was like, light him up with the bikes, judgment token, full rerolls to hit. I did manage to kill that Dorn with 2 land forts and a squad of bikes and a few CP pumped into it, which like lucky for me, but like you got to kind of take some risks in this matchup. He was able to teleport the squad of Kazarkin and shoot a land fort and Zerks and just deleted the Zerks. Didn't get any feel no pains because the Finial was funny. Did like, I don't know, 10 damage to a land fort, 6 of which was mortals. And then the other land fort died to Gatekeeper plus the Dorn shooting out of combat. So again, if I like played that a little bit better, I definitely like should have tried to base the Dorn. For some reason, I forgot I could just go in and touch the wall. But yeah, that it went okay, but it was kind of like a losing battle at that point. It was basically a betting on, okay, this squad of Zerkers that's in combat with the Dorn needs to kill it. And it's super swingy. It's like 9 attacks, 3 rolling hits, wounding on 3s. He gets 5s to save. They end up not killing the Dorn through like 2 rounds of ongoing combat and eventually just getting shot to death by the Dorn. And at that point, Hank's just kind of pushing into my DZ. And so game's kind of ending at that point. I'm at a loss for secondaries. He's already got 15 on Inflexible. He's already got like 11 on Boots. He's retrieving battlefield data all around, and I can't stop that because he can just walk on and do it. My prospects is like a 9. I bring it down to like a 5. There's a Dorn I keep trying to like shoot. It keeps making saves, and it wins the game on 1 health. I'm like, that's a bummer. And then Ancestors, I just lose a ton of points at the end because there's all these little things on like 1 health or 2 health or 1 model with tokens. So no prisoners would have been like a 6 or 7, but it doesn't really matter because this end score was 77-42. So it could have been like, okay, 77-49. It's a tough matchup. I liked some things I tried. Definitely learned that it's a matchup you can't win without taking risks. Just got to be like real careful with like when your Zerkers go in a bit more. So I don't know. It's tough. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
That's
if you re-rack the same game today, do you think you try anything different, Prince, big picture wise, or do you think that macro strategy was still the right idea?
Like, I think, yeah, I don't really know what else. It's kind of like anything he can see, he just kills because the Dorns are like really good at hitting me because it's like hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, straight to the invuln. Each shot's like 4 damage. And then the Kazarkin, like just ignoring the Dorn, the Kazarkin show up and do 9 damage to both forts before anything else shoots. The 1 squad of Kazarkin. Mm-hmm. So it's like I can screen out the Kazarkin, but I'm screening out the Kazarkin with my bikes, and then he just kills the bikes and he passes to me, and the Kazarkin is still behind the wall. I think what I might have done differently is since he had Officer of the Fleet, he could only lock one of the Gravkin squads in reserves. So I think I'd put both of them in reserves again. So I'd be like, here's both. So that means he has to be a lot more careful with his Kazarkin movement or deployment. He was pretty brazen with them in his backfield because he knew I couldn't get back there and shoot them. So I think if I did it again, that's the one small thing I'd change. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really hard matchup.
Mhm.
So yeah, nothing much else. Obviously, if they don't have Scout Sentinels, just try to lock them in their DZ with bikes. But Hank's smart because that's what happened to him last time we played. Now he's bringing Scout Sentinels.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And Votan don't have access to anything that forward deploys at all, do they?
No. Yeah, so you don't get to do the Moses play or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are the Bulgren? Are they a problem for you, or are they not really a factor in this matchup?
The Maul ones aren't that bad. I mean, like the minus, like they're tanky. The -1 damage is really good because everything Votan shoots is basically damage 2. And the Zerkers being damage 3 going to damage 2 is annoying because it means 2 Zerkers have to go through. But like what you can do is basically like throw some judgment on it, soften it up with like a little bit of ablative shooting, and then charge a squad of Zerkers in with rerolls and you'll pick them up. Like, sure, they might spike their 4-up invulns, and that's a bummer if they do, but they're not too bad. So
Nice.
Yeah. They're also relatively like lower leadership. They're leadership 8. So if you kill like 3 or 4, there's a good chance that one of them just books it.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. So one boy down under Hank Inc. so far, and we'll move on over to my second match into Custodes. Everyone's getting a double matchup this time. This time fielded by our boy Stephen Trimble, who is certainly well known in this end. I'm currently playing into reigning. Is he reigning best in faction Custodes player? Stephen
Not
Trimble.
best year.
No,
he was
Death
from
Guard.
2021.
No?
He's the reigning, best infection.
Death Guard.
Death Guard
That's
player.
what it is.
Yep.
Okay, reigning best infection Death Guard player. My apologies. Stephen Trimble playing a different pile of idiots in power armor that run forward screaming. You want to walk us through this list, Lucas? It's a little bit less complicated.
Yeah. We've got, assume this is Solar Watch. We've got Trajan, Squad 3, Squad of 1, Alaris Terminators, 2 squads of 10 Wardens with Spears, Banner Boy with Magnifica plus the Advancing Charge Warlord trait, 6 Venetarii with 1 Shield Guy and 5 Spears, and then 5 Flamer Sisters. So a lot less MSU, a lot more big bricks to take advantage of those strats. How'd this game go? Custodes twice in a row.
Indeed. So I was feeling real good walking into this game. I was like, I just did this. This is not that hard. This is also Steve, who Steve and I have played a number of times, and Steve plays very predictably. He's going to deploy his 2 bricks to dudes in line. He's going to run forward screaming. And he's very good at doing that, to be clear. Like, he has very good success in tournaments for a reason. But it's kind of like, we talk about how one of Lucas's real strengths with the orc build in particular is his ability to either play back or play forward. Steve doesn't play back. That's not an option. And even though the list maybe could, he personally won't. And that just is a huge advantage in this matchup, being able to predict what's going to happen. So, like, for example, he starts a squad of Venetarii. I'll get to the picture in a second. He starts a squad of Venetarii in the top left corner, and I'm like, oh, I know what you want to do. You want to blitz across the table and advance and charge. So here's a squad of bikes that'll go touch my top objective barely. And you can probably hit like a 6 or 7 inch charge into them with advance and charge. That's fine. And the math is you kill like 4 bikes, and then I'll get D3 of them back. So that sounds fine with me. And then you'll lose your only genuinely mobile unit. You want to do that turn 1, Steve? And Steve said, yes, please. Abso-fucking-lutely. I can turn 1 charge. Let me at him. And so they ran in and they died. But the drop turn is where things got real sketchy in this game. So I made some massive mistakes here from a big picture perspective. My thought was, let me explain what's happened. So the Venetarii go up to the top left. We'll deal with them, no problem. And then his Wardens both advance up to go stand behind that large wall in the middle there, which is the thing that I've excavated because he definitely wants to run right through it. And he parks his Banner Boy in the corner of that little top left L there so that he could reach the Venetarii who had strung out to go after those bikes that were up top there. And I'm looking at this, and I'm doing the angles and measurements, and I'm like, oh, I can definitely get a squad of Seismics lined up and Webbers into that dude and the Kellermorph. I could definitely kill him. So I'm thinking, well, what if I just kill him and then move block the Wardens And then his Venatori are dead, and then he's out of mobility, and he's just a movement 5 with 2 melee bricks walking around, not doing much. And I can play at the corners and win on having better secondary while denying some primary. This is a really great plan, except that it completely ignores probably the most important part of this matchup, which is that holy shit, Wardens shoot like hell into GSC. I hadn't played into Big Bricks of Custodes since switching to GSC. The last time I played Big Bricks of Custodes, I was playing with the double cover Tyrant Guard, who do not care at all about a bunch of AP2 2 damage shots that are like strength 4, I think. So like they wounded me on 5s. I have a 2-up save, whatever. I didn't even know that they could shoot. They could all double shoot because it had never been used against me because it wasn't relevant. And so I drop in, I move block some stuff. I kill the sisters. I kill the Alaris, the 3-man Alaris that were chilling on that little bottom right objective there. I move block the Wardens, and I'm feeling pretty comfy. And then Steve unloads his shooting and kills 60 neophytes. And I'm like, oh.
Uh-oh.
So it's like that, huh? Gotcha. He then proceeds to drop his 2 solo Alaris into my backfield again because on Data Scry, even more so, can I not zone that? I probably could have. I think I was just being a little sloppy not doing so because I have squad of bikes in the back still, but whatever the case, he drops in there, and then he hits both of his deep strike charges, which is like really annoying. And he gets 3 points of assassinate out of it and gets a big tag out of it as well because he goes into a squad of neophytes, and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, that's fine. I don't care about that. And then he proceeds to do 0 damage with an Alaris Terminator into a squad of neophytes. Hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, I have no save with like 5 attacks. And I'm like, cool, bro. That's fine. That's how it goes. I try to blow myself out, and that's not happening. So they have to fall back. He also manages to punk my Sanctus, and this is where I lose the game. Because the plan isn't great, but I still have I should still be doing really well in theory. He punks my Sanctus and tags my Nexos, and my brain just says, damn, I am all out of Crossfire tokens. Shit. Completely oblivious to the fact that I have a Nexos who's standing right there. And as a result of this, I then proceed to also forget about the ability to have a squad of, because then I have to kill these Alaris with like bikes. And I completely forget about the fact that I could just have a squad of bikes, shoot with not the demo charge, apply a token, charge, throw the demo in combat with true exposure. That works as well. Mm-hmm. There's 2 different ways to get a token on this dude before killing them to pick up ambush points. I do neither of them. So I messed that up. And so my ambush is a 5 this game because I killed all the small units other than those dudes, and then I killed both of those dudes that turn without any tokens on them at all because one of them is then down to 1 wound, so applying a token to him ends up just killing him. So that sucks. My Brood Swarm is fine. It's automatic. It's Custodes. My RBD is fine. That's a full 12. It was definitely the right call. I considered banners. Would have been terrible. My primary is fine. I lose to him on primary by 1 point. But then on secondaries, he gets a 9 on Assassinate, 3 of which the Sanctus could have been very easily prevented, but that's on me. And he gets 15 on Prisoners. That was automatic. And he gets a 9 on Banners himself. So I lose on secondaries by 1 point as well. It's, because it's 32-33. Yeah, 32-33. If I just apply the Crossfire token and don't set up the exposure, tie game, 75-75. If I set up the exposure, which was automatic, 77-75 in my favor, and I would have taken this. Even with that horrible mess up, on turn 5, I have one last chance to make it happen, which is he's got just Trajan on that back objective there. I went first, by the way, so he's got bottom turn. So I'm not stopping his 12. That's not happening. But what I could do is because he's basically got a squad of Wardens on sort of the further away of my 2 objectives. He's got a squad of Wardens strung out along his 2 objectives in no man's land. He's got Trajan on his home field, and that's it. 3 units. If I hit a charge into Trajan up top, I can prevent him from hitting the button, which will deny 3 points and win the game on the spot. It'll also probably deny primary. Maybe it won't deny primary. Who knows? But it'll stop him hitting the button, which is just the game right there. If I can get a dude on that objective, and I have returned to the shadows a squad the previous turn, a full 20 brick. So they drop in behind the wall up in that right corner, so I can't get tangle-footed. They have to be outside of 9, not outside of 8, because it's Return to the Shadows, which means that I have a 9-inch charge with a command point available if I need it to win the game. Doesn't end up working out. That's kind of how it goes. Shouldn't have gotten to that place because I really should have gotten my ambush correctly. I bunged this one up, and I end up going down 75-73. Well played by Steve. He did the right stuff in the right places. In hindsight, I should have just killed a brick. Like, these things are not that durable into me because, okay, cool, you're transhuman. Okay, cool, you ignore rerolls. Well, first of all, only one of them is transhuman, and that's costing you like 11 CP. So what should happen here is I should drop in the split fire, or not in split fire, apply perfect ambush to one squad, fire at it with everything I've got. If he wants to pop both strats, I'll kill like 2. Cool. And then the other 3 squads will go into the other squad and kill the whole brick. Like it's not that complicated. And if I do that instead of doing this nonsense move blocky stuff, and instead of overcommitting to this stupid character who doesn't really even matter, he didn't even need the advance and charge that badly. This game is a sweep, but live and learn, playing into something I wasn't super familiar with, and I got bit in the butt for not knowing what he could do. So that's how it goes. Really good game by Steve, but I'm going to end up 2-1, as will Nick. So going into day 2, save us. Oh wait, Lucas, have we talked about Lucas' game yet?
We have not.
No, we haven't. So save us, Lukas Troller. You are our only hope. Any
For
questions
Portland,
about this game?
I'm doing it. Let's see what I got. Round 3, baby. We got the Salamanders by our boy Harry. Let's go. Which one of you guys wants to read a salamander list?
Oh, me, dude.
Harry,
I'm number
go for
2
it.
Salamanders fan in Portland. That's not true, but I am number 1 Harry fan, so that is true. All right, so Harry, fucking Chad, only plays Firstborn Salamanders and plays them super well. So we got, first off, Brayarth Ashmantle. That is their name, Dreadnought, who is ridiculously hard to kill if you've never played against him, and he also hits like a freight train. We got 3 squads of 5 tacticals with Combi Melta, Claw, Multi-Melta. We got 5 scouts with a Combi Flamer Fists. We got 2x5 Stern Guard with Fists, 3 Combi Meltas, 2 Melty Meltas. Got a squad of 5 Stern Guard with a Fist and 5 Combi Flamers. 10 Assault Terminators, 8 Thunderhammer Storm Shield, 2 Claws. 5 Assault Marines with a Claw, a Hammer, 2 times Flamers, and an Eviscerator. A Speeder, 2 more of another Speeder? Are these different types of Speeders?
This is a squadron of 1 speeder with multi-melta and a squadron of 2 speeders with multi-melta.
Very cool. 3 solo rhinos, and then 2 Hunters of Beasts Helverins.
Yeah. This, could you go to the next slide, Tyler?
Doesn't he also start on 6 CP?
He does. He spends 0 CP pre-game.
Yep.
What a Chad.
He doesn't even have any eligible.
legendary.
No, he can't buy any relics, and the one warlord trait he could buy is Inspiring Presence on Brayarth Ashmantle.
He's a 4-roll character.
That's the only option available to him.
Honestly,
could
he
probably
should
buy,
do
like,
it just to
relic for
flex though.
sergeants. Right?
That would be sick. Yeah, he could also buy Sergeant relics. That's true. But
Do
yeah,
salamanders have any good relics?
what
are their bolts? Because everyone's got
They've got-
bolts, right?
it's not very good.
Okay.
probably
Their
bad.
bolts are bad. They've got a librarian relic if you're taking a librarian.
Yeah. The like extra bonus to their spells or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, tell us about how this game shook out, Lucas.
Yeah. I've started to realize against in general, when you play on Data Scry Salvage and you go first and you're a pressure army, you can more or less just like charge into the midfield and do a bunch of fighting and then probably win because you have better objective control than your opponent. And so that's literally what I did. I went first. I moved up. I started playing. I played pretty safe to begin with because Harry does have some scary shooting at close range. So I just made sure he wasn't going to shoot me. When I charged his scouts, he Born Protectored forward. And at that point, he was definitely up in my grill. So he exposed everything. Didn't really shoot very much. And then I slammed him with my entire army. And the only 2 points of primary he got were from the button on turn 1. So that can definitely happen on Data Scry Salvage when you go up against pressure. And it's not like his secondaries were definitely good. Shock Tactics is automatic against orcs because you're just trading your objectives back and forth all day. So if you're playing Marines into orcs and you're struggling a little bit, try out Shock Tactics. It's usually a very good one. Promethean Creed ended up being all right, and Assassination, he only got a 9. You definitely want to be able to kill at least 4 or 5 characters going up against orcs. So yeah, I just had more stuff than him all over the board, and they forgot to take a picture of this game, unfortunately, but it ended up just being more or less a sweep for the orcs. Salamanders still have Ignore AP1. They have like their pseudo AOC, which was pretty big because my army has a fair bit of AP1, but it just ended up not mattering. They don't have that many wounds, and I still have plenty of other stuff that is greater than AP1, so he was just, especially without the Apothecary to bring guys back and to try to interrupt some of the 2 and 3 damages to decrease efficiency. With no Apothecary, it's just like they melt away.
Harry, why don't you have an Apothecary? What are you doing, Harry? Harry, I know you're in the chat. Tell me why. I'm so confused.
I'm not sure.
You brought a 10-man Terminator brick and a bunch of... okay, cool.
But yeah, I can see what he's going for here. And in theory, the list has a lot of... Well, it's Salamanders. It has a ton of Flamer and a ton of Melta. But it's just fairly easy to play around those guns at this point. Like, it's so telegraphed. I'm going to move 6 and I'm going to shoot 24. Okay, I'll either stay outside of 30 or make sure you're not going to get an angle on me. Just very easy to play around. Harry says it's expensive. That's fair. Gotta be an Apothecary, but seems worth it to me. What do I know? I'm not a Marines player. But yeah, this one was more or less a stomp for the green lads.
Scoreboard.
Sorry, I guess there's 2 green lads in this game, but the better ones.
No.
Orcs chosen.
I mean to say, what do you know? You're not a Marines player, but scoreboard. Maybe you do know what you're talking about. Anyway, very cool. So, end of day 1, head out to the bar. Nick and I going 0-2-1. Lucas, the last hope for TNG, to take home the trophy.
I will say, I'm glad none of us knocked each other out because that always
yes. Team kills are the worst thing that happens here. And particularly because I think we also, it's not good. So very cool. Oh, moving on to day 2. We're playing the Scouring, which is actually Lucas's favorite mission. I guess the joke here is that this is my favorite mission, but I don't hate it nearly as much as I used to. New Scouring is a lot better than old Scouring was.
Good bit.
All right.
Yeah, Lucas did joke that we played the perfect mission pack for good bits. Like,
we got rid
all
of
the good ones, none of the
good bits.
You didn't get abandoned sanctuaries.
I mean, like probably only 12 points.
Before we
12.
reveal who we're playing, Lucas, you're 3-0. I guess. Who are you going to sleep? Who are you hoping to face tomorrow on the Scouring?
Who am I hoping to face on the Scouring?
Who are you hoping not to face?
I was at this point. I had looked at the people that were left, and there were a couple people that I thought I had a decent game into, but it could be sketchy. And then I had one person who I was absolutely terrified of, and that individual was Hank. Going up against Guard is super sketch for orcs. It is heavily weighted toward whoever wins the go first roll. So that alone makes the matchup super volatile and is really anxiety inducing because it's like, well, I just hope I go first. And if not, then I basically lose. And I also specifically wanted to play Hank on very particular missions. The Scouring would have been a decent one because all the objectives are in their middle. But more importantly, I would love to play him on Dawn of War the following round because you just start closer to them and they have to spread out. And that's not good for Guard. So I was scared of Hank, but I definitely had some avenues to be able to beat him depending on who went first and the board I was playing on. Other people I was scared of, there were still a couple of undefeated World Leaders, and there was an undefeated Space Wolf as well, in particular Ryan Cherewick and Linton Rowan. They were both undefeated, and I need to respect them as well. They're definitely 2 armies that can contest me in melee, and especially on a mission like the Scouring, where Space Wolves can take shock tactics and score very well. World Leaders can take Blood God's Due and Blood for the Blood God and score super well. Those were definitely going to be sketchy armies, but I felt fairly confident in both of those. Definitely the most worried about Hank at this point.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that was interesting to me, is because in my head, this seems like a great mission to play guard on, but bringing up the depth of the deployment zone is a really important thing. Very reminiscent of our Goths v Freebooters games like 2 years ago.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to my game against Hank in round 5. Spoilers. But the depth of the deployment zone is the most important part. So being able to hide far back from orcs is the most important.
Cool.
Very cool. Alrighty.
All right. Top of the morning. What's going on first? Oh, it's Votan versus the doctor's office. This is a dumb bit, guys. I'm sorry.
Lucas, you want to run us through this doctor's office list real quick?
Sure, yeah. So Nick's going up against the mighty, the terrifying doctor's office. We got a squad of 5 people in line.
I think it's 5 squads of 1 person in line, actually, technically.
5 squads of 1 person in line. Wow, interesting. Does that fit in an Arcs Moment detachment?
I think so. They have to be your they have to be the compulsory.
They're troops.
They're troops.
Oh, so that's how they get our rule of 3. Gotcha.
All right, we got 1 receptionist with relic long list of insurance information.
It's a warlord trait, but yeah.
So he can assign judgment to patients. We've got a doctor's assistant. Yeah, and then we've got a doctor with fielding kind presence, 2 nitrile gloves, a stethoscope of unnatural chill, and a short list of foods to not eat.
Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah.
How many CP is this starting with? That's a whole lot going in there.
It's spent 3, so it's got 3. Yeah. 3, okay. Anyways, so I mentioned how I had to go to the ER Wednesday morning before the event, and as part of that, they told me I had to go see the doctor over the weekend to make sure I wasn't like dying. So I knew I would have to go Saturday or Sunday morning, and I didn't want to go Saturday because I didn't want to be late to the start of the event. I wanted to at least be able to play an RTT and see what happened. I went on Sunday. I was hoping I'd be able to get it done in time because the round started at 10. Unfortunately, things were just running behind, as they do sometimes, and it looked like I was going to end up being 30 minutes late to the first round. So I had told the TO beforehand, like, there's a chance I might not be able to show up to a round because of what's going on. If so, either just like, you can tell my opponent, like, put the clock on my time, I'll be there late, or you can give me a 0 for that round, I'll concede, or like, if there's a bye, I'll take a bye, or you can just drop me, like, whatever is easiest. I don't want to like mess up the tournament. What ended up happening was he ended up giving me a bye for that round. So that was it. I didn't play a game. I showed up 30 minutes late. I think Tyler and I were paired into each other, which I would have been totally fine being like, Tyler, just like put the clock on me and I'll play with whatever time I have left when we get there.
For sure.
But he didn't want to. I think there was another person who didn't have a game. So he was like,
exactly.
Tyler doesn't have an opponent. This person doesn't have an opponent. We'll have them play. Nick's getting the bye this round. So I ended up getting a 50-point tie. It doesn't matter. It wasn't a game. The doctor's office wins this round.
Very cool already. I'm not going to push the bit any further. We've done enough. All right, so I get paired then into not Nick, but rather into this dope dude called Owen playing Death Guard. Mad props to Owen for rolling out to a major like this. I believe he is 14 years old. Really young kid who knew what he was doing. Like, this kid was sharp. And also like internalized stuff really quickly. He had never played in a GSC before. A lot of people and also in game state, a lot of people I'll be like, all right, so here's the situation. It's like this. And they'll be like, what about like, and Owen was like, yep, understood. Do. I'm going to go do my thing now, which was really cool. Lucas, you want to rush through this Death Guard list here? It's a pretty interesting list, actually.
Sure. So he's got a Demon Prince with Gloaming Bloat. I believe that's no rerolls. So he's Morty's Anvil.
Yes, he's playing as Mortarian's Anvil.
Do you have the heroic strat?
Yeah, heroics if I charge.
Yep. So he's got a Demon Prince with no rerolls and the Warped Insect Hive. We've got a Malignant Plaguecaster, 10 Poxwalkers, 3 squads, 3 Dress Shroud, 1 with the Funny Skull, the Plague Skull, and then 1 with the Reaper of Glorious Entropy. We've got 3 single bloat drones. I mean, you guys gonna keep making spelling mistakes? I'll keep reciting it as is. 3 single bloat drones, all with flesh mowers, 3 plague burst crawlers, and 3 precision cruelty executioners, baby. I love these guys. Let's go.
Walk the audience through what that does.
Precision cruelty is a Iconoclast Dreadblade trait that gives them +1 AP and damage if they roll a 6 to wound. So it'll make their autocannons 7-3-4 and their stubbers 5-1-2 when they roll 6s, which is nice.
It's very fun. Unfortunately for Owen, this is about as bad of a matchup as this army has. This army is very good at killing tanks, and I brought none of those. I guess I brought Moses. Who
what about his
died
Death Shroud with their sweepy deepy attacks, my brother?
Absolutely. If the Death Shroud ever get into combat, I'm gonna lose some dudes. Unfortunately, that never happened. Death Shroud are made of paper. My army's made of scissors, and they're also strength 4. Fun fact, because they're Terminators. So a squad of Webbers, the 4 Webbers kill a Death Shroud, and then the rest of the unit shoots.
Free weapon, by the way. Free weapon on a 6-point dude. And then he has -1 damage, but okay, cool. I'm still wounding you on 2s. He's got a 2-up save, but no AOC, and I ignore cover. It's only got 6 wounds. So, yeah, this was unfortunately not a great matchup up for my boy here. This is me in the middle of my drop turn. Actually, this is after the drop. This is like the end of the drop turn.
Turn your eyes to the clock.
Yeah, at the end of my drop turn here. This is end of turn 2. I took this photo. I have so far killed the Plague Caster, the Poxwalkers, all the Death Shroud, none of the bloat drones. That bloat drone at the bottom middle there just showed up and went to Raw Dog and 9 and failed. And then I got it down to 1 wound, but it was still chilling, and I was clenching a little bit. And then that's really all I had to kill. And then his PBC in the top there is in combat with a squad of neophytes. His PBC in the middle there is in combat with bikes who are on his objective. He's got that executioner in the middle there is not on the objective. He had him standing back because he had Death Shroud in front of him on the objective. Those Death Shroud are dead. There are neophytes on the objective. It's usual GSC nonsense. But at the end of turn 2, on the clock, I have 22 minutes, and Owen has 56 minutes. At the end of turn 5, I had 10 minutes, and Owen had 20 minutes. That's kind of how GSC works. I spend an hour and 10 minutes doing turns 1 and 2, and then I sort of just stand around and fire off a couple shots. Secondaries wise, Brute Swarm is automatic because he's a pile of vehicles. RBD is automatic. I probably could have taken banners, but that's just kind of flexy, and I have so many 5-man squads that don't have anything better to do that RBD seemed pretty comfy. And then Ambush was a 15 as well because I did it correctly this time. I sort of woke up this morning and chose violence. I was really, really annoyed that I lost to Trimble over my own stupidity like that, and was like, I'm just going to throw 3 people against the wall. My apologies to anyone standing in my path. And I had a very good game. We were very cordial about the whole thing. I'm not trying to be rude to opponents or anything here. Just like going to win and going to get all of my points. Also because I want to end up with a good placing overall. And this is battle points at the end of the day. War Patrol went really poorly for him because he kept prioritizing some of his other stuff on the Demon Prince. In particular, he really liked the Demon Prince having a max range aura of no rerolls, which isn't that useful into GSC, but it's something that in general is really cool. So I understand the appeal of it. I got nervous in the beginning here, actually, because I tried to have a squad of bikes between a thrown demo charge and a melee demo charge, try to do some work on a squad of Death Shroud, and they killed 1. And I was like, oh, well, that's a problem. But yeah, he's a slow army with a bunch of vehicles that don't want to be in combat. I'm a bunch of dudes that want to be in combat with the silly vehicles. The Reductus obviously popped off this game, had just tons of great targets, and was just pop, 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 blowing stuff up. Ends up working out real well, 97-55 in my favor. So yeah, there's my morning. Lucas's morning, 3-0 pair comes in, and he is playing into Black Legion, baby. This is Jason Ryder, right?
It is.
Who in the previous round defeated our boy Max, who's been on the show before, who is one of the, probably after Hank, is the next scariest guard player who was in attendance at the event. So Jason knows what he's doing. Nick, you want to run us through this Black Legion list?
Yeah, so we got the man, the myth, the legend, the Don himself leading the Black Legion, as he should. Not a Khorne Patrol detachment or something weird like that. We got a Dark Apostle with Veteran Raider and Cloak of Conquest. Don't know what either of those are. We got a Mop with Liber Hereticus, which is the sick, I think, casts another spell. Maybe even with a +1. No, you can just...
Just to be clear here, Lucas, that's a spelling error. It's supposed to be Libra, not Liber, but moving on.
Yeah. See, I'm
No.
nice and I just read it the right way. We got a Terminator Sorcerer with a Veilbreaker Plate. Don't know what that does. We got 3 squads of 5 Legionnaires. We got 2x9 Bikers. One
Let's
is
go.
Slanesh, which is sick because you can cast the Feel No Pain spell on them. And one of them is Zinch, which is cool because I think the Terminator Sorcerer had Marcus Zinch, and you can cast the 4-up Invuln on them. Which one of the squads is the Black Rune? I'm not sure which one, but it has
I think it's a Zinch.
-1 to wound.
Yep.
The Zinch one, sick. And there's 2 combi ultis in each. And then there's a Greater Brass Scorpion of Corn just chilling there. I think I watched a few of Ryder's games, and he was strat reserving this a lot of the weekend, because those who don't know, the Brass Scorpion on its data sheet has an ability to charge 3d6, just adds them all together. It also,
Yeah,
It's
all-
ramming
all
speeds
the
every
all-
turn.
which is sick.
I think it ignores all charge mods as well.
Yep.
Hilarious.
So just comes in and it goes, hey dude, 94 out of Deep Strike, let's go baby. Yeah, pretty cool.
Do you know what these things do, Lucas, that Nick and I are unfamiliar with as
Yes.
Chaos Novices?
The Veilbreaker Plate gives AOC, and it lets him and another Black Legion unit within 6 during the command phase do a teleport outside of 9.
That's sick. Okay.
The veteran Raider gives a core unit within 6 fallback, shoot, and charge, and the Cloak of Conquest gives core and maybe character within 6 obsec.
Jesus.
Those are all really good. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Black Legion
Yeah.
they got a set. If they had some good data sheets, this army would be terrifying.
Yeah, Black Legion are sick.
Kinda
So yeah,
best
his
for
bikers are all obsec, and they can fall back, shoot, and charge. One squad is -1 to wound, T6, 4-up Invuln, and the other squad is T5, 3-up armor, 5-up Feel No Pain. So yeah, definitely spooky. Wasn't really sure how I was going to be able to kill the bikers, so ended up taking Assassinate in this game just because I figured I'd probably have to kill the Dawn, and then hopefully I get to 1 or 2 other characters. That way I wasn't hedging on killing these super unkillable bikers, but lo and behold, orcs can do it. Let's go to the next slide here where we can see what we're looking at the end of turn 2. He ends up going first, and moving up a little bit. The board is a little hard to see what's going on because it's so shiny. But he's at the top of the board, top of the map there, and he moved his bikers up into that forest that is now carpeted with orcs. And as you can probably infer from the fact that it is carpeted with orcs, we just slam dunkied him with our whole army and killed 18 of the 20 bikers. So yeah, they were not tanky at all. Even through trans hitmen, no rerolls,
T6 -1 to wound. Isn't that like the perfect thing into a strength 5 army?
No, because I'm actually
Oh.
strength 7 and 10.
Oh, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, strength
Never
stack
mind.
cost is nutty. So yeah, my normal dudes were like wounding him on 3s and 4s, which was pretty sick. And without, the Zinch guys have to spend 2 CP to interrupt, and they're only strength 4, so like they're just scratching a few units. So I was able to just multi-charge them with like 6 units and just eventually ground pound them into the dirt. And then the Slanesh guys are resilient with the Feel No Pain, but they are just hoping their 3-up armor save gets them there. So I tried to go for a biker boss charge. It ended up being like a 7-inch charge, so I just went for the safer unit and went into the Zinch bikers with the biker. But yeah, in theory, the Killaclaw biker boss would kill like 3 or 4 of those Slanesh bikers, and then like hopefully some Stormboys and Zagstruck can finish off the rest of the unit. So yeah, the turn I went in, I killed 10 Legionaries and 18 bikers, and then from there he was just frantically trying to dig himself out. He did a pretty good job. Ended up getting not the most primary points. That's really where I won the game, but he did get a fair number of Assassinate and No Prisoners points, which was great. And then the Black Legion have a cool secondary that gets you 4 points every time you scan an objective that's not in your DZ. Pretty solid on the scouring, and it finishes at the end of the game. So he was able to Veilbreaker Plate on the very last turn, a single Legionary onto the middle objective, and get another 4 points on that. So very creative play there. But overall, this game was just primary diff. I made him completely unable to hold basically any objective for most of the game, and the majority of his primary points came from just scanning the objectives frantically. Yeah. So good game to Jason. The Brass Scorpion was actually pretty funny. It came in on the left side of the table and charged those red pigs that were over there on the left and killed them. And I failed to kill them the next turn. So it went on a bit of a rampage through my deployment zone. But at that point, it was just too little too late because it got back there on turn like 4. So it ended up denying me some green tide points toward the latter half of the game, as you can see. and also denied some primary as well, but I was already at a 45 by that point. So, yeah, definitely a fun game. Should have taken no prisoners in hindsight. It is so much easier to kill Space Marine or power armor wounds than I was previously used to with AOC everywhere. All the AP 1 and 2 just adds up so fast, and you can just massacre them. Yeah, I was on that turn I went in, I was expecting to kill like the legionaries and maybe half the bikers. All the legionaries and all the bikers was was pretty surprising. Basically just had them down to 4 characters and the Scorpion at the top of 3, which was pretty brutal. But yeah, it was a fun game. And it was cool to see Abaddon back on the table after his, not necessarily a hiatus, but definitely got hit a little bit with the Nerf bat. So good to see the man back because he's a cool model. I feel like they really nailed his design and set of rules. It really fits him, and it's cool to see him like embrace the power of all of the 4 gods. He's just such a cool guy.
Yeah. How did he do this game?
He did well. He went on a rampage. He killed Zagstruck. He ran over. He killed. He did not kill that kill rig. He killed Zagstruck. He killed a squad of 10 orcs. He killed 3 pigs, and then he just barely died on turn 4 to like a Hail Mary charge by myself with a kill rig to try to wipe him out. Yeah, he did very well.
I came over at one point and I watched a full health Abaddon get 1 bomb squig thrown at him, and Lucas was like, 3 mortals, and I'm like, nice, dude, every time.
It was actually the squad of pigs that's in my backfield right now screening out his Veilbreaker plate. They ran up and needed like a 5 on their advance. They ran up, hopped on the middle objective, just barely got within 12, out of line of sight. Abaddon's lookout surd. I don't care. Take 3 mortal wounds. Funny bomb squig.
There's this
I have
weird
never
curse.
seen these Squigs ever do anything.
Yeah, every time Lucas does mortals to Abaddon, it's always flat 3. Like Abaddon could be like nearby a vehicle, it's gonna explode and do 3 mortals to him as long as Lucas is doing it. Like, yeah,
even more so if Lucas is the one fielding Abaddon.
Yeah, that too. Wondering, did the Black Rune of Damnation's like weird second ability, the Perils aura, like ruin your kill rigs at all?
Yes. Because he's leading with that Zinch squad and not using it as like a second counterpunch unit. They have like a 24-inch range of whenever
18-inch aura.
It's a what?
18-inch aura.
Oh, right, because I had to be in smite range. Yeah, that's right. 18-inch aura whenever you roll doubles to cast you Perils. I didn't know this and rolled up on turn 1. I'm like, I'll just get some smite damage on your bikers. And he's like, you'll peril 3 times, brother. It's a one guy and I'll bring him back to life. I'm like, nice psychic phase.
Wait, that's just in addition to -1 to wound?
Yep.
GW, come on.
It is the best relic in their book for a reason.
It was already the best relic in the book without that. That's hilarious. Awesome. All right, very cool. Well, great job, Lucas. So 4 down, 2 to go for our boy. And we're moving on over to round 5, which is the funny mission that Lucas is, fingers crossed, us in for Hank on here. Tide of Conviction. This is everyone's favorite mission. This is a great one.
Yeah, I'm so excited to play.
What do you got, Nick?
I get the bye again for some reason. Okay, well, the first one was because I was late. And then I'm so excited to play. And I get a game, actually. I get paired to our boy Leland playing demons. And then Colton comes over. He's like, hey, sorry, someone else's opponent dropped. I'm going to give you the bye so this guy can play because he doesn't already have a bye. And I'm like, okay, Colton. And then I don't get to play another game. But I do get to walk around and watch a lot of games, which was fun. And I don't know how much. Do we have enough time to tell the funny Warden story for like 2 minutes?
Yes. Okay.
There's a story I was telling you guys, and you told me to tell it on the show. So something that was super fun about this tournament is I was still able to hang out with everyone. I was late last round, so I got automatic bye, and then I got the bye this round. So I was able to walk around and observe a lot of games. Also with my games day 1, the Chaos Knight games ended in like 45 minutes, so I was able to walk around a lot and hang out with people. So I got to see a lot of funny things happen. Yeah, if you just like walk around a 40K tournament, it's super cool. So one of the games going on in this round was our boy Trimble, who Tyler had played, versus another friend of the show, Lee Seiger from Team Aegis. And they were both playing identical lists, basically. 20 Warden Solar Watch into each other with like Venatari, Trajan, Alaris, right? I know they both took behind. So I came over and I was watching them move. Trimble moves up his army. I go, I believe, for like 20 minutes. I come back. It's Lee's turn. He's moving up to charge Trimble. In every corner of the board, there is a Alaris Custodian. In Lee's back corners, there's 2 painted in Trimble's colors. And in Trimble's back corners, there's 2 painted in Lee's colors. And I'm like, are you guys just like sitting there and just letting each other get 4 on behind every turn? They're like, yeah, like there's no way we're charging those guys in the back corners. We're just running at each other and like we max behind, doesn't matter. And I'm like, okay, very funny. So Trimble hasn't fought yet. So what Lee does is Lee gets his wardens charging into a squad of 10 wardens, and he leaves a little channel for Trajan. Trajan runs in and does it. So unfortunately, Lee fails the charge, so Trajan has to reroll it. Lee's at 2 CP, gets in, he's at 1. So Lee can't transhuman anymore, the big squad, right? Because it's 2 CP for the big brick. Steve has 2, so he can transhuman. I think I asked, I was like, have you already refunded your CP? And Lee's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he like can't refund that charge one. So at this point, it's like, what do you think he swings with first? Trajan or the Wardens, right? Because then obviously Steve is going to spend 1 CP to interrupt because he's on an objective and fight back with the 10 Wardens. So Lee goes first with Trajan. Trimble goes transhuman, refunds 1 of the CP. Darn. All right. The Trajan kills 1 Warden, which is, I don't know. I don't think it's that great because what this means now is the Wardens can use a strat for 1 CP, which is, what is it? It is
interrupt on top of an objective.
Yeah. Okay. So like, Trimble had to have 3 then. Yeah. That's what he had because he had 2 for this for the interrupt. And yeah. It's 1 CP if you're below starting strength, you get +1 attack, and if you're below half strength, you get +2 attacks. So Steve goes 1 CP interrupt, 1 CP +1 attack. So now my Wardens have like 5 attacks. So you're getting hit with 9 Wardens into your 10 Wardens because you killed 1 of them with Trajan. And I don't know, Lee rolls pretty darn well, and 6 Wardens die, but 4 are alive. And then Lee's like, all right, 1 CP. +2 attacks because I'm below starting. I'm below, half strength or whatever. And he claps back and deletes like 9 Wardens or something silly. It might have been like, I don't know. It was like a ludicrous amount. And Steve was like, what is happening? Because in my mind, I was like, dang, dude, I thought Lee should have gone first with the Wardens, but apparently not, dude. The mirror match there, I'm like, I do not understand what is going on right here. I do think Trimble ended up winning that game, but it was a very funny interaction to watch happening. This like gentleman's agreement where they're not going to touch each other's Alarises. So yeah, that was a fun game to watch.
Very
That's
cool.
It's, yeah, we're 2-1.
All right.
2 buzz.
Cool. Moving on to my round 5. I know Lucas has played in this army a lot. You want to tell us about this Tau list?
Sure. So this is our boy John Anania's Tau, another Portland resident, one of the Portland boys. He's playing Tau Sept. He's got Aumva. We got a Crisis Commander with full rerolls, double cyclic, missile, and the Flamer. We've got Shadow Sun with Exemplar of Kauyon. We've got Long Strike with Through Boldness Victory. This is a great piece of tech that I've seen Tau players start to take, and that if you don't know about, you should take. It's Long Strike's assigned Warlord trait, and it's a command phase buff that you put on a core unit, and it gives them 6s to hit auto wound. Great into tough targets, great into transhuman, and with all of both of those things that we have in the meta right now, you should definitely be taking this if you are playing Tau. We've got a squad of 5 crisis suits. Sorry, if you're playing Tau with the 5 crisis suit unit. We got a squad of 5 crisis with plasma burst, cyclic target lock. We got some upgrades on them. We got 2 squads of 3 stealth suits, 2 squads of 4 crude hounds, and 3 riptides. 1 with the burst cannon. They've all got plasma guns. How'd this go?
Yeah. So I've got the scoreboard up for those of y'all who can see it at the moment. It did not go super well for the Tau. This is a really favored matchup as Tau players get more and more elite and into this anti-tank stuff. The Riptides with Ions are a joke into GSC. The Crisis do okay, I guess. So a lot of this comes down to what commanders do you have, and Shadow Sun and a double cyclic missile thermoneutronic Crisis are not what you want into GSC at all. all. That's just not enough shots, not even close. So he's never going to be able to kill me, and I'm going to stand on all of his objectives. And it's tied, which is like the best mission imaginable. My only regret is not taking banners over RBD because I would have been able to get a clean hundo. I went first, and John and I talked for a while because we were both like, we know how this is going to go. Let's try something crazy, because if you don't try something crazy, you know this is going to go really poorly for you. And he said, fuck it, I'm going Montca, baby. And I'm like, all right, John, go for it. So he goes Montca, and turn one, my squad of bikes yeets up the side. We get a token on a squad of stealth suits and kill them. No, we don't even get a token on. We just get the 2 points. Yeah, they just dump their shots into a squad of stealth suits, kill them, get 2 points for popping out of a blip that turn on ambush, and then they charge his crisis brick. He overwatches, and I don't care because it's just hitting on 6s, and I've got baby transhuman and everything. Kills like 2 or 3 bikes, and they go in and tag him. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Tyler, why are you charging crisis suits with bikes top 1? Like, this is a unit that's going to get to fall back and shoot and ignore all modifiers. And he's got OBSEC. Someone knows what this is. There is literally 0 OBSEC in it and 0 ways to get OBSEC in it, which is just real sad in this matchup. But there's no way I'm going to take this objective out from under him. The crisis are on, and his back center. The reason that I am charging this unit is because if they are in combat and they fall back and shoot, they cannot advance. And I have pre-measured and set everything up such that if the crisis unit falls back, only 10, and I'll base all the dudes, so we're not getting any PAL consoles out of it. He then cannot get shots on anybody other than this bike unit that is already deep in his zone, which means that I will have 2 fully functioning squads of bikes ready to go next turn. He's able to cut a little bit of angle into one of them with a Riptide, kills like a dude who comes back because of the icon ward. So I'm basically drop turning onto him full exposed. He probably should have fallen the crisis suits backwards once he saw what was happening, but he ends up following them back forwards, which exposes them even harder. So I go ahead and drop in, and in my drop turn, kill the entire crisis unit through all the buffs. 1 Riptide, 2 Riptides, half of a 3rd Riptide, and have charges lined up so that everything is in combat and nothing is falling back and shooting anymore. And he scooped. I gave him the 15 on prisoners because I give everyone a 15 on prisoners. Yeah, not a particularly exciting matchup, unfortunately, and one that I've played a lot in the past. If you're a Tau player and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is totally unwinnable, I've lost to Tau before. The matchup, the mission, and the going first help a lot, but in particular, we check out the episode I did on GSC to talk about generic ways to beat GSC, but for Tau, I think you need to be taking commanders that do a lot more damage to hordes, because you're not getting that damage done with the big guys. So you need to have a lot of shots coming out of commanders, because the commanders can also be protected. So if you're a Tau player running a lot of GSC, think about cold stars, think about 2 cold stars with just DACA, just deleting units. Also think about Borkan. I played Ashley, what's her last name? I don't remember, recently. And she was doing this with Borkan, and it was very spicy to be doing all this damage at 22 instead of at 18. Not to mention the ignore invulns is kind of nice. So there's play in there, but not with this build. This game was over before it started, regardless of the mission and regardless of who goes first.
There's another thing about Borkan that's actually pretty interesting, and is that's the -1 strength to ranged weapons when you shoot battle suits.
Yes, with strength 8, under strength 8.
Yep. Very good into seismic cannons, basically giving you -1 to wound. Very good
And
into all of the shotguns and flamer. You don't have any flamers left, but shotguns and grenade launchers, often -1 to wound. Very big.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're a Tau player looking to beat GSC, Borkan's the way to do it. This was unfortunately not that. I gave him 15 on prisoners, and he got a 4 on decisive action because he took Montca. So turn 1, he had no problem holding 3 objectives. Final score 97-29. Cool. Moving on over to
We call them the NPC faction for a reason. So this is actually a picture of everyone comforting all the guard players comforting another guard player who managed to somehow lose a game while fielding Kazarkin. All right, buddy.
right, you want me to read this list?
Go for it.
Please, Nick.
So I played against this list, but it looks a little different this time. We got Napoleon.
To be clear, this is Hank. This is Lucas versus Hank.
Yeah, I know. Lucas just wrote it differently, so I'm going to read what he wrote here. We got Napoleon. We got the flag. We got the tank commander with gatekeeper. We got 4x10 guardsman. We got 2x5 Bulgrin with 5 grenades. We got 10 Kanzerkin with the Barbican's key. We got 2x1 scout sentinels flamers. We got 2 Dorns with meticulous calibrator, and we got 2x3 mortars.
Yeah.
Whatever the list more detail with me.
So this was. I wonder if I can. I don't think I can skip ahead. Tyler is not here. But yeah. So this is the. There we go. Thank you, sir. This is the matchup I'm terrified of. Right. It's guard. It's Kazarkin coming in and doing 1 million damage to 3 units. It's tanks blowing me up all game with no recourse. It's mortars killing my Gretchen before they can get any points. Luckily, this was on the one mission I felt most confident in to Hank on, which was Tie to Conviction. Why? Well, 2 reasons. 1, we start closer together. Sorry, 3 reasons. 1, we start closer together. 2, there is less depth to his deployment zone, so he has less area to hide. And then 3 is that it's a hold 2, hold 3 mission. So it's going to be very difficult for him to hold primary. And with the fact that both of our secondaries are going to be very good, he's going to take Inflexible and Assassination and score very well on both. And then his last one's going to be okay. I'm going to take Stomp him good and get the good bits and score well. And then maybe I get a couple prisoners points as well. We're roughly parity on secondaries. Maybe he has a slight advantage. If I want to be able to win this game, I have to win it on primary. So definitely a good mission for me. And then obviously the chances to win this game for either one of us is weighted massively by who goes first, right? So if I go first, I start the game 6 inches off his deployment zone with my entire army with a 5-up invuln fully juiced. And then he has a much harder time killing me and ever breaking out of his DZ because nothing in their army flies. There's very little redeploying. So his ability to actually get onto my side of the table is shut down for like 3 or 4 turns. By contrast, if he goes first, he demechs me and locks me in my deployment zone and mortars most of my Storm Boys / Gretchen away, which is pretty brutal stuff. So we get our stuff set up. I end up winning the defender roll off for the purposes of dropping commandos. And then we set up roughly parity terrain. I think this looks like it's almost exactly mirrored. I put a forest just inside my DZ. This is a technique that I've used a lot and I found some good success with. And I advocate for a lot for other folks to use. Whenever -1 to hit is impactful for a non-zero portion of your opponent's army, considering putting your big units that you won't be able to hide in a forest so that they're -1 to hit can be very good. So I had all 3 kill rigs in there. Drop my commandos to screen out his sentinels. He actually puts his sentinels entirely within his deployment zone, just not at all scout deployed, which was interesting. Not quite sure why he did that, but he did. And then we're rolling off to go first. We're locking eyes. We're kind of sweating a little bit because neither of us, we both know how important this roll is. He rolls first, rolls a 2. And I'm like, all right, now's my chance for Gork. And I roll a 2. Unlucky. He rolls again, gets another 2. I'm like, all right, I can't screw this up twice in a row. And then I get a 1.
Bro!
Unlucky, bro.
Roll
so
just
Hank's
to
going
comment
first.
You gotta say, dude, the Chad move for Hank to roll before you do, dude.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Gotta let the Hoomies go first. They need it.
Just put it on the table. I assume that he's putting his sentinels back to avoid, if you go first, you getting some like weird long bomb charges into them and then getting a bunch of free tags out of that. You could slam a squad of Snagas out, go pile console 6, kill it with the boss kind of thing.
That's fair.
Those are some scary situations.
If you wrap the shoot into combat strat, only one thing gets to shoot into combat.
Right.
Well, the other one breakouts, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely some ability to tag / breakout if the Sentinels are deployed forward. So yeah, I see what he was doing. I see what he was getting at there. Imagine playing Sentinels instead of Ratlings. Yes, that's true. Especially for you, Max, because you always go first, bastard. So yeah, Hank's going first. This is like the 4th game in a row going second into guard. He teleports his Kazakin, gives him full rerolls to hit, like a very original person. He lines up all his tanks to shoot my kill rigs, and Kazakin go first, spend 2 CP. He does not split them appropriately, in my opinion. He puts half the squad into the fast rig and half the squad into the other rig when they are fully capable of having 3 las rifles shoot each rig and do 6 mortal wounds. So he definitely should have adjusted his positioning a little bit to facilitate that. As it was, he did, I think, 12 damage to both of the rigs he shot at, so that was 24 damage there. And then the tanks opened fire and knocked out both of those rigs. It's important to sequence your shooting correctly when you're playing guard, and Hank definitely did not sequence his turn 1 shooting correctly. He was trying to like knock out one of the wounded rigs with Gatekeeper so he wouldn't have to shoot a whole Dorn into it. And then when I disembarked, he realized, oh shoot, I don't have any targets with that Dorn now. So the Dorn that was on the left like was just sheltered. When it moved up, it was just behind that building on that objective where my commandos are right now. And it just barely had a line on the red rig around that building. So when the red rig died to Gatekeeper, I was like, all right, I guess you won't shoot anything now. So yeah, Hank missed out on some damage from the Kazarkin by splitting incorrectly, and then he also missed out on that entire Dorn just by not shooting it. So turn 1, he knocked out those 2 rigs. He shot the mortars in, killed my 8-man Storm Boys down to a wounded knob, and then did 2 damage, killed 2 boys from the other Storm Boy squad, and then thinned out the snag as it disembarked a little bit. He also moved up, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that's important in a second, because I WOG, and I proceed to charge my entire army into his DZ. Thanks to some decent advance rolls, I am able to get all of the units that I really needed to get that turn. Mostly it was the Beast Boss on the right going for like a iffy 7 or 8 inch charge on the Kazarkin. The Kazarkin were just 9 inches to the right of those commandos who are in the midboard right now. So I get in on this Kazarkin and flatten them. And then I charge basically all the units that are just outside of his DZ, which is 30 guardsmen, the 2 sentinels, and then the squad of Bulgren that's on the left with the mauls. They're in that building on that objective. Bulgren are tanky for sure. The -1 damage can be good into all the 2 and 3 damage that orcs have. But you know what they don't like is a bunch of like strength 6 dudes with AP1 that get 1,000,000 hits on them. Because at the end of the day, they only have 15 wounds. And funny thing, Goth commandos are strength 6 + 1 to wound. So I'm wounding your giant ogre ass on a 2. So the squad of 5 commandos in that building and 5 Storm Boys blitz in, and the 10 of those guys just flatline all 5 Bulgren, which was hilarious. So those Bulgren are down. Storm Boys have catapulted into his DZ, and they've killed all 20 guards, or they've killed 20 guardsmen. I've wrapped that Sentinel that's in the middle there, and the Kazarkin are dead to my Beast Boss. So yeah, I was surprised at the amount of speed that I have, but I think a lot of that was facilitated by Dawn of War and Hank stepping forward. Definitely feel like the better play here was to play a little further back. But yeah, his response is obviously blistering. It's still guard. They have a ton of firepower. He wipes out. He uses the shoot into combat strat to kill a sentinel and break himself out of combat so that he can kill the units that are wrapping it, which was 10 Beast Nagas and the 10 Storm Boys. And then continues to also just thin me out. I think he kills some pigs, starts working on the squads of commandos that are in the upper left. But by this point, he's just in his DZ. And in the following turn, I proceed to kill everything else that's not a tank. So all the mortars die. We have Leontis and the command squad charging onto the objective to try to kill a bunch of Snagas. I wipe them out with the last squad of Snagas that's in the final rig. So they charge forward and kill all his officers. And at that point, he's actually losing some points on inflexible command. So he only got a 13 on that. And he also just didn't have that many orders left. So yeah, killed the 2 officers, killed all the infantry. Kazarkin were dead. Mortars were dead. So he was literally just down to the 3 tanks. And he got some points with them in the later game, moving around, making them opposite with the tank commander, stealing objectives from my Gretchen, who weren't orbital kits, and getting some overrun points. That was on the right side of the board. But overall, it's just the inability of him to leave his deployment zone for the first 3 or 4 turns meant that his primary was pretty bad, and mine was pretty good. And orcs also have good secondaries under guard. Get the good bits. You'd think it can be sketchy because of all the mortars, and they can definitely focus your Gretchen down, but that has an opportunity cost, right? You're giving up the chances to shoot the Storm Boys, which are super high value targets for the mortars. So Stomp 'em good, or sorry, Get the Good Bits is usually decent for that reason. And even if you just do it like 2 or 3 times, that's 8 to 12 points, which is totally fine. So I usually find Get the Good Bits is still automatic into guard. Stomp 'em good. They have Hank's list has some of the most melee I've seen from guard between the Solar, which everyone has, and all the Bulgrin. Stomp 'em good, still super good into them. I would even consider it into the Rough Riders. And then No Prisoners as well. Fair amount of infantry that Hank has, and my plan is to kill all of it. So No Prisoners is the automatic take. Definitely benefiting from the Arcs of Omen change that bumps Stomp 'em good over to Purge the Enemy. Because in the previous packet, this combination wouldn't have been possible, and I would have been forced to take Big Game, which actually is not good here. But yeah, definitely the combo of Stomp 'em and No Prisoners into certain matchups can be really good. But yeah, ended up going roughly parity on secondaries and then more or less smashing them on the primary just because of how forward I was playing. So definitely reassuring to see that Orcs can win going second. I think that was somewhat facilitated by a couple of key mistakes that Hank made. Just to summarize those, I think the turn 1 shooting was done inefficiently. He missed out on damage from his Kazarkin by not splitting them. He basically missed out on 6 mortal wounds from that. And then he obviously didn't shoot a Dorn, which could have killed my other kill rig and then just completely locked down my mobility. He also, I think, overestimated the resilience of his Bulgrin. Every time I hit them, they just melted in one fight phase. Whereas I thought, based on how he was setting them up and the buffs he was giving them, that they were going to stick around a little bit longer. And they definitely did not do that. So I think the Bulgrin are a little bit overrated here. And I also think he could have ordered a shooting phase a little bit better to be more efficient. But overall, definitely a well-played game to Hank. I could tell he knew what he was doing. Just a couple of slight misplays because of probably lack of experience into pressure matchups. And I'm sure he won't make those mistakes again because he's a really smart guy. But yeah, definitely a good game and felt great to win even going second.
Very cool.
Well done.
You talked about some.
Oh, sorry. I'm just saying that's like the big hurdle. Congrats.
You talked about your concern with the Kazarkin, your concern with the Dorns and the Gatekeeper for turn 1. You talk about how those played out. What did the Mortars end up doing turn 1? That was the last concern that you had, that they would be annihilating Grots and or Storm Boys. What did they end up doing top 1?
They shot Storm Boys, and that's definitely the right call. They are probably the best unit in this matchup because they're easily they're easily capable of killing any unit that the guard throws forward to screen with. And considering their movement and the reliability of a long charge with Here We Go, they can also be instrumental in getting a tag to just lock a Dorn in place if I really don't want it to move. Because the Dorn's ideal target is the Storm Boys anyway for all of its little guns, it doesn't really matter whether or not I'm in combat with it because it's just going to shoot me with those weapons either way. So you may as well give it -1 to hit. So the Storm Boys are super, super impactful here. And I definitely agree with Hank's choice of shooting them with the mortars instead of the Gretchen. It can be swingy because random numbers of shots is always sketch. So like the first unit, he rolled like 14 shots. And then the second unit, I think he got 6 or something like that. So the first unit of Storm Boys was knocked all the way down to 1 dude. And then the next unit took incidental damage. Definitely the right call out. And over the course of, especially going first, over the course of the first couple turns, you can definitely knock out most of the Storm Boys. And that gives you a big leg up.
Very cool. And the other thing I wanted to follow up on was, you talked about how your terrain is almost exactly mirrored, but you are definitely not playing nearly mirrored armies. Max here thinks that his deployment of train here is a little bit too defensive. And Noah says that he should probably go for a really Chaos Knight style, put everything in the back. What do you think about that for this particular matchup? Do you think you have enough shooting to warrant the hiding spots, or is the train just getting in his way too much?
I don't think I have any shooting he needs to worry about at all. I think the buildings are purely there just to move block my cavalry and vehicles, and that probably could have been done a little bit more efficiently. Definitely that big, solid, straight piece should have, in my opinion, gone basically right where my commandos are. Just a nice, big, long building to block me, and then that forest is probably in the right spot. I would have even considered moving it over to the left, so that on my way to make it to that objective, I'm -2 to move. So yeah, just ways to get in the way terrain, ways to get the terrain in the way of the orcs. There we go, English language, so that they take more time to get to your DZ. I think the ideal way to play this is use terrain to slow me down, and then backline your army for the first 2 turns while you table me, and then move forward and get all your points. If you try to get points early on, you're just opening yourself up to wraps, to tags, to getting all your infantry killed, and then you can actually lose very quickly, which is what happened in this game.
Yeah. Something I really like, because I was paying attention to like Max was saying about the terrain and what you were talking about turn 1, where you feel like he lost because he pushed up and it was hard for him to get shooting angles.
Right.
I'm wondering, like, so this, for our listeners, apologies, but Hank has a L on one of his, for Tide of Conviction, his forward objective closest to his home objective. What if that L was the crate instead? Because I think the tanks are tall enough to see over the crate, which means they can just sit on his backline and shoot over the crate, like in all of this space that's open. And the crate still blocks the cavalry and the kill rigs and your infantry, because your infantry can't charge through the crate. They have to charge around it now or up and over. That's what I think would be. Like, I look for crates a lot when I'm playing shooting armies. Like, what is it, like Votan, or even just like vehicles are usually tall enough to see over them, and you're move blocking everything in your opponent's army while doing so.
Yeah,
So
that probably would have been even better than the straight piece there. I agree.
Yeah. I like crate there and then straight piece on the other objective, forest right in between them. And then your L's can be your backfield stuff to properly hide mortars behind. Because if like a kill rig cuts a bead on some mortars and blows them up, that's really annoying.
Agreed.
But yeah. Very cool. All right, sweet. Well, one way or another, Lukas got it done. Very excited to see how this sort of matchup develops as y'all both continue to evolve. Very bummed that I did not get to play into Hank, but both of y'all did, because he and I were talking about that matchup a lot. But
it took like
we'll see how it goes
10 things
forward.
to tech into you.
He did. I personally didn't think it was enough. So I was curious to see if I could put my money where my mouth was on that one. What did you think of the Grenadier Gauntlet Bullgrin, Lukas?
No. They were a lot worse when Hank realized they don't get born soldiers. Let's just put it that way.
All right, moving on. Sweet. So we're going into round 6. It's the final round, and that means that y'all are going to have to sit here for about an hour while Nick and I talk about our games before we get to Lukas. We're playing Prios, Lukas's actual favorite one, and the one where we don't think too hard about the fact that objectives can touch the line if they really want to. So let's say they can't. Starting up first, we got our boy Nick playing into Salamanders again, a recurrent appearance on this episode. This is not Harry, however. This poor fool only has 2 command points, unlike the boss 6 that Harry brings. Though I think this list might be a little bit better because he doesn't have such silly restrictions. Anyway, Lukas, tell us about the Salamanders list that Nick is playing into.
Yeah, boy, he got that Brayarth Ash Mantle. We got a Librarian. We got Primaris Champion Bike, Master of Sanctity with +1 to chant, and the Vox. Lord of Fire. That's cool. That's Vulcan's trait, right? I forget. Give some kind of
like boosts
flamers
and meltas and stuff. Yeah.
2 squads of infiltrators, 2 squads of aggressors, 6 and 5 with flamers. Got an apothecary with selfless healer. 10 Thunderhammer Storm Shield Assault Terminators, 2 squads of 5 devs. Combi Melta Hammer on the Sergeant and Cherub. 1 squad's all grab, 1 squad's all Melta. 5 Eradicators, and he starts with 2 CP. Lord of Fire is reroll number of Melta shots.
All right, sick. It is an aura, so it gets
Flamer shots, not Melta, but yeah.
Flamer shots.
Of Le
Very
Flammy
spicy.
shots. So yeah, this was into Tim. He's a local from Beaverton, so super sick. Like, sick part about this tournament was meeting a bunch of new people. After a game, I was like, dude, join the PDX Discord and like join the league, and we can play some more. He had this sick display board that was like a spiraling like sandstone thing. If you guys
you get to play against this guy? That guy's a local? Oh man, this dude's stuff is gorgeous. I assumed he was playing Deathwing because he's got a bunch of Terminators in sandstone, but they were
I thought too, yeah. Unfortunately not Deathwing, which would have been very scary. So what's sick though about that, I was talking to him about it. It's all magnetized. Like, he just like, I think the paint is all like magnet paint, and he has like magnet like shavings on there as well. So all the magnetized bases on the bottom. Because I was like, did you like put magnets and you have to carefully line everything up? He's like, nah, dude, they can just go wherever they want on this thing because it's all magnetized. Super sick display board. So yeah, we played. I was super happy. I was like, oh my god, I get to play a game today. Let's go. So this is into Space Marines, which I haven't actually played into yet with AOC gone. I guess I played into World Eaters, which are Space Marines, but I haven't played into like Loyalists, you know. All right, let's go, dude. So this is Priorities, which is a very fun mission. I'm very glad it's in the mission pack. Usually people don't put it in there, which is dumb because it's the best 5 objective mission. So I win the roll-off, and I elect to go Defender because I don't want him to slam a nice fat L down in the middle and just hang out there with the Terminators. I'm like, I'm going to put a Force in the middle, and you get to move the first objective because I'm fine with him making mine unsafe, and I can make his unsafe. I'm like, yeah, we'll play this game. So I slam mine down in the middle. And then objective-wise, we go over how the objectives move and everything like that. Like, understand, yada, yada. He's like, cool. Like, yep, I played this before. I know what I'm doing. And he moves his home objective first. And he moves it closer to the middle, which is sick. He doesn't move it away.
Chad move.
And I'm like, and he's like, could I have moved one of yours? I'm like, you can. Do you want to move one of mine instead of that? And he's like, no, this is fine. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take both the midfields and move them to me now. He was like, okay. And then he moved mine closer to the middle. So we basically have like all 3 of mine like right around the middle and his like right here. Very weird. And I'm like, well, that one close to me is your prio. And then he's like, I'm going to make your home field your prio. And I'm like, okay. And something he did, he was like looking and he's like, okay, you're Votan. I've read the rules. I want to play Votan. I haven't like played into them much yet. Like, you're going to be able to like cut angles and shoot me. I don't want that to happen. You're going to delete whatever you see. So I'm going to reserve a lot of my army. I'm going to reserve a lot of my shooting elements because then they can just walk in from the board edge and blow you up. I think he reserves a little bit too much. So this is like a cautionary tale about strat reserves. The fact that you can reserve everything is super cool, but the balance of like what to put in deep strike / stat reserves and what to keep on the board is always a careful line to walk. So he puts 5 aggressors with Flamestorm in reserves, both of the Devastator squads, the Eradicator squad, and the Terminators at deep strike. So starting on the board is like the characters, the Infiltrators, Brayarth, and 6 aggressors, which he combat squatted. And I go first, and I'm like, well, dude, 1,000 points of your army is in reserve, so I am going to drive at you as fast as possible and try to end the game before your reserves show up, because I'm going to get 2 turns to fight you. And I do that. So I blitz forward. I ended up taking Banners, Assassinate, No Prisoners on this. No Prisoners just felt easier than Ancestors to me. And he ends up taking Promethean Creed, Engage, and Codex Warfare. Basically, unfortunately, it was because he put so much of his army in reserves, and I hit him so hard turn 1 that then his clapback was not that strong because he was really only able to clap back with like the Chaplain on bike, which I then killed. And actually, Brayarth did move into the middle. Brayarth was really scary. Brayarth rolled like a Greek god and tanked so much shooting. He just kept making saves in 5-up Filnopans, and he finally died to the last gun. And that was unfortunate because then it kind of just meant I was able to take over the midfield. We did have a funny moment where his Deb squad walked in from the side of the board and looked at a land fort and just did 32 damage to it because I failed all my saves. Yeah, it was pretty funny. What was it? Then on turn 3, he went for just a 9-inch charge out of deep strike with his Terminators into my call and sent that guy to hell. And I still held the objective though because the bikes.
You sure this isn't Max?
Yeah, I mean he had a reroll. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it was just one of those things where it was like I put so much pressure on early that when his clapback came in, it wasn't enough. And then my clapback comes in, and my Grav Thunderkin just delete squads that they look at. Yep. So this game ends up 96-17. So pretty good for the Votan. Yeah, I was able to. He got 4 points on primary because I was just able to keep him off his. Like he couldn't get to his prio basically.
He got
the whole game.
3 secondary points.
What was it?
5. He got 4 primary, 5 secondary.
He said 17 points, right?
Oh, 17. Oh God.
Either way,
Yeah.
not a ton of points. No big deal where they actually ended up being. Yeah, it seems brutal.
That's what I'm looking at here.
Don't put 80% of your army in. Well, not 80% because that's not a thing you can do. But don't put most of your army in deep strike when the opponent has the ability to just blitz you in 1 turn.
Yep.
Scary stuff.
So yeah, Marines are a lot harder, or a lot easier to kill now. So that's what I learned.
Yes,
Alrighty.
sir.
Well,
How did
Speaking
the Gravkin were not specifically tech for loyal Space Marines, but just generally good into power armor and more elite armies? How did they do this game?
Really good. Yeah, I had a squad show up and just delete 5 Eradicators, and then another squad showed up and what was it? Deleted some Devastators.
AP 3/4 flat 3 is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. So, D6 shots a guy, pretty nice. I'm gonna keep playing the Thunderkin. Might even try to get a 3rd squad on there, so I have 3 squads of 3. Sounds pretty sick.
damn,
Nice.
that'd be pretty sick. Very
Alright,
cool.
that's
Well,
it.
speaking of putting 80% of your army in deep strike, let's move on to my round 6. And it is finally time for the matchup that I have been waiting for, that I have been teching for. It is time to face the Dark Angels. I was very nervous about this matchup. I'd played literally this exact guy, his name was Jed, earlier in the week, and I wanted to see if I could vibe check him, and I could not. So that means we are going to have to win this game, not kill this game. And my oh my, this was a success. You want to walk us through this Dark Angels list, Lucas?
Sure. We've got Azrael. I'm guessing he's the Warlord. We have a Talon Master with Arbiter's Gaze. That means he always hits on 2s and Rites of War. We got 5 infills, 10, 10, and 5 Deathwing Terminators. Ravenwing Apothecary with Selfless Healer. Ravenwing Champion with Blade of Triumph. This is a really cool dude. For those who haven't seen him, he's 70 points for a cool... I think he like Heroic 6 into characters, reroll hits into characters, flat 3 damage. He's kind of a gangster, and he's also super cheap, so like great model. 2 squads of 3 attack bikes with multi-meltas. 1 and 1 Landspeeder Tornadoes with melting guns and assault cannons, and 3 Eliminators with las fusils, and then Carbine to fire and fade.
Indeed. So this is, I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a singular Deathwing build that has come out as the best Deathwing build, but they all look kind of like this. He's got most of the right pieces. He's got a big old pile of Terminators. He's got a handful of Landspeeder Tornadoes. He's got a Talon Master with rights. He's got 5 Infiltrators. He's got Azzy. He's got the Apothecary. Like, the gang's all here at the end of the day. So this is really scary, and it's scary for a couple of reasons. First off, I cannot kill old Deathwing Terminators very quickly, like full stop. They have 1-up saves. My army basically caps out at AP 2, so they're taking 3-ups at worst. Yo, what are we doing, brother? So that's a big bummer. They're transhuman, and I'm an army whose a lot of my strength is being strength 6 plus 1 to wounds, so none of that helps. I can ignore cover, which is nice. So he's taking 3-ups instead of 2-ups, but like that's all. He hits really hard in melee, and he's going to sit in Dev Doctrine all game and fire these stupid missile launchers with frag missiles, which each Cyclone has 2 of them. And he's got 2 Cyclones in a squad of 10, or in a squad of 5 after he combat squads, because he's started 1 10 together, split a 10 into 2 5s, one with both missiles, one with no missiles. So that's 24 shots with blast. They're going to hit on 2s if they stood still, or maybe 3s if they don't. They'll be chapter mastered from Azrael. They're going to wound me on 3s because that's as good as they can do, and they'll reroll 1s from the Talon Master. They'll have AP because they're in Dev Doctrine, and I think they're already AP 1s. That puts them to AP 2. No, that puts them to AP 1. All right, so I'll have a 6-up save. Cool. That's terrifying. And then he's got some Storm Bolters on those guys as well, just to hammer it home. His missile launcher dudes also have Chain Fist Storm Bolter. Everyone else is Thunderhammer Storm Shield. So that's terrifying. I can't whittle down the big squads because the Apothecary is going to keep bringing guys back at basically the rate that I can kill them. And these land speeders are just terrifying. They can get in really close. They can cut really intense angles. They can kill stuff. They can score points really well. They move 21 shoot and charge for some reason. I'm going to rant about Dark Angels another time. But fortunately for me, I've got some good tech for this. I've got Excavate to turn a piece of terrain into difficult, which is going to be huge. I've got Webbers up the wazoo, which are the only thing in the army that can pretend to efficiently work its way through Dark Angel Terminators. I've got the Reductus to help deal with some of these land speeders. The Webbers are also really good into the land speeders because they're only strength 4. And we're going to do what we can here. So I win the roll-off, and I choose to be attacker. And with that at attacker, I choose to move his second objective toward me. After a lot of thought and discussion, he ends up deciding to move my second objective toward him, and then pulls his own home objective kind of forward, kind of to the side, kind of at an angle. And then I pull my home objective backwards. And you may be thinking, oh, but don't you want to be in the mush? Don't you want to have that up front? No, I want that in the back because I know that he's going to be I know that he really likes to deep strike stuff, and I want to be able to screen that deep strike from as far back as possible. So what ends up happening is he deep strikes 5 of his Terminators, and everyone else starts on the table. And I just don't want him cutting angles with the frickin' land speeders as well. So secondaries wise, I take Brood Swarm because it's automatic. I take Ambush because it's automatic, and I take RBD. Banners is tempting here. And when you look at the primary score, you'll think, why did you do that? I don't like it. I wanted to play it safe, focus on the things that I knew that I could take care of, and win the game that way, as opposed to trying to do big spooky stuff. Meanwhile, he took Assassinate. I do have 6 characters. He took No Prisoners, which is a 15, and he took Behind Enemy Lines with the intention of like launching these speeders and attack bikes and deep striking Terminators into my DZ. Not a terrible call. This game, if you look at the scoreboard, comes down almost essentially to primary. I spend a whole lot of time denying his assassinates. So I end up going first, which is why he gets a 12 on turn 5. And on that first turn, I end up trying really hard to kill his infiltrators to make my life easier. I don't. I kill 3 of them, and then he reses 1 later. But I do manage to kill his eliminators while they have a token on them. Don't have true exposure, but token with the blip squad means I'm getting a 4 on ambush, which is great because I want to get that secondary cranking as quickly as possible because I'm going to need all the points I can get. And then they set up to hold stuff down. He's got all of his Terminators like in a single objective on his home field, which is what I excavate. So that feels real comfy. And then he makes a really big mistake, which is that he starts shooting at that bike squad that's sitting right in front of him. His Terminators in an excavated ruin are moving through. They're moving 3 inches. So he really needs to get them out of there as quickly as possible. And a 3-inch move does not get all of them out of there. So he's going to need to charge if he wants to get out. So he lines up a charge on the bikes, which is the correct thing to do. I've just sort of accepted this is going to happen because I need the points. And he unfortunately then decides to shoot, kills a couple, and keeps shooting and shoots down that bike squad to just 3 dudes who are way out of the way. There's no way he's charging them, so his Terminators are locked there. The other bike squad is holding the top left objective comfortably, even though he pulled it forward, because he's in that excavated building. There's no way he's getting over there anytime soon. And then in the bottom right, I've got Moses chilling behind a wall on that objective. The front every angle squad has walked on there, cut a tight bead on the 5-man Terminator squad. The squad has a squad of 1 missile launcher. I think this is the 5-man with 1 missile launcher. Yeah. No, maybe. No, it's a squad with 2. It's a squad with 2 missile launchers. And they're lighting them up. They're not doing a ton of damage, but they're getting that damage almost entirely for free because that squad is going to have to move. And they're also not getting any of the rerolls or buffs or anything. So it's very funny. When these Terminators move, they go from hitting on 2s to hitting on 4s because they're heavy and they don't get the +1 for whatchamacallit anymore, for Dark Angels. So that 24 shots suddenly becomes 12 hits instead of like 20 hits. And now we're in business. So Jed responds, like I said, he doesn't handle the bikes correctly. I do fail morale on the bikes and then roll 2 1s and 2s. So my 3 dudes all run to morale. And I'm like, well, that could have been a lot. But, you know, I got really lucky that he ended up misplaying there. So I can't really complain. He also, though, sends up a lot of his speeders to try to get shots off to really try to wipe out the squad of neophytes with the front of your angle squad, because he knows that those 2 Terminators are not going to be enough. And those Terminators are in a forest, so they're never getting to me. This is a really big mistake, and I don't think he properly understood why, because those are really his only way of getting behind, and they're also really one of his only ways of getting assassinate, because he's not getting to my characters anytime soon, and he's got to kill through screens to get them, which takes turns that he just doesn't have. So I drive up a squad of bikes. They run over there. We blow up 1. We end up in combat with the other one and only get it down to 1 wound, which was really a bummer, but that's all right. The third one we also kill. Yeah, because the third one he runs over to also get shots. So I kill 2 and almost kill the third. He ends up falling back, and I try to cut it down, and I have like 3 dudes in engagement. I can't roll a 6. It's a coin flip, so it goes. That dude ends up not doing anything. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, so those guys go down, and so my turn 2 is those, and then I drop in, I kill the rest of that 5-man, and this is a good moment to talk about Auspex, because Jesus Christ, do Dark Angels have Auspex? Because obviously they didn't move in that. Wait a second.
Yeah, it's in the previous movement phase, right?
Yeah, but like, isn't that the current movement phase?
I'm pretty certain.
If they move on their turn and then I arrive and then they shoot me, they're shooting in the movement phase. The previous movement phase was on their turn.
Oh, you might be right.
Yeah, never looked into this that tightly. We've always assumed that they Auspex on 2s, but they might not. We'll look into that. Not a big deal. Whatever the case, even hitting on 3s with Chapter Master, it's whatever. So that's terrifying with these 24 shots with AP because they're in Dev Doctrine, like just brutal. So I need to do everything in my power to avoid that. So first of all, obviously you can show outside of 12. Great. Crazy insights, Tyler. Show up outside of 12 if you don't want to get Auspex. Here's the bigger deal is angles. With 2 dudes, only 2 dudes that you have to avoid letting him shoot at you with, you can very easily cut the angle to avoid those 2 dudes shooting. And if you're looking at a big unit of dudes with guns, AdMech Rangers or Tau Auspex or Aggressors or something like that, you can cut an angle, or a Votan Bikes is a really big one. You can cut an angle such that 1 dude and only 1 dude can see you, and all of you can see the 1 dude, and suddenly the Auspex is not a concern anymore. So those are sort of the 2 big tricks in the bag there to avoid that from being too big of a problem. So we do our best to avoid that. We drop in. I hold 1 squad back. I hold the 3-inch squad. No, it's not. The 3-inch squad has to show up. I think it's the charge squad holds back, but everyone else comes in. We kill those things. We kill the 5-man. We kill the other 5-man that he has got on the center of my objective, and then I kill. I don't kill the 5-man. I kill like 2 of the 5. He's got a 5-man going toward the objective, but he also is more than 6 inches off, so I'm able to show up outside of 6 with multiple OBSEC dudes on that objective. And when the bikes go in to charge the speeders, they also end up on the center, so I'm able to outnumber him there, which puts him down to that 4 that he gets. So we've killed off a good amount of stuff, but his 10-man is totally untouched. They're just like slowly working their way through the difficult ground. One of his 5-mans is down to, I think it's down to 2 or 3, and he pulls up a 3rd or 4th. We kill a squad of attack bikes. We're getting there, slowly but surely. He tries to clap back, and he ends up fully wiping a squad of neophytes. He ends up mostly wiping, including the banner, a 2nd squad of neophytes, which is a bummer. The 3rd squad, he ends up killing a good amount of, but definitely not all of them, and ends up in combat with them, but he's killed a bunch, so that's not real. Already broken from coherency, stood around coherency. I'm out of combat, and everyone comes back. And then, but in order to kill one of these squads of 20, he puts his Talon Master in a really, really bad position. And not only is this a Talon Master who just has a million shots and is terrifying, he's also got Arbiter's Gaze, so he hits on 2s, which is terrifying, and he's got Rights, which means that this guy is the only source of OBSEC for the Terminators, and if the Terminators lose OBSEC, he loses the game, is how I see it. And this dude is positioned poorly. I drop in, blow that dude to Kingdom Come with my last squad, and that's going to be lights. He swings around, and at that point, I just need to protect my characters. The primary, as you can see, when I say I max primary, I did score 12, 12, 12, 12, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. I did get the full 73 primary points this game. Caps at 45, but we were on all the objectives all the time. And his primary goes 4, 4, 4, 12, and he never got his prio because, like I said, I outflanked onto it turn 1. I had bikes on it turn 1. His Terminators, the only thing that could go after it was in a forest in the back. He can't get OBSEC there. It's just not happening. Part of the fun thing about prios is that if you pull the objectives correctly, you can strat reserve onto them, which is something you can't do in a lot of missions. So if you can pull someone's prio into within 6, and then you walk OBSEC onto it, and you're like, cool, get some OBSEC over here. I dare you. It's just not real. So yeah, this ends up shaking out real well. Only get an 8 on RBD. I make some sacrifices to make that happen. I didn't make sacrifices. Did I just forget to do it turn 1? That seems, no, I didn't forget. I couldn't because I had squads strung, and out, so it wasn't happening turn 1. I should have probably deployed a 5-man to get that turn 1, but I end up getting it turns 2, 3, and 4, and then I'm out of units to do it with turn 5 because I need my bikes to be a big squad and they're not in the right place. So I only end up with an 8 on that. Those are the only 7 points I'm missing out on. Final score ends up being 93-61. He gets 1 assassinate on turn 5, which is fine by me. 3 points of behind for swiggling Terminators in there, so 9 in total, and a 15 on prisoners. Final score 93-61, and we are finishing up 5-1 with a lot of points and a Dark Angel head on a stick. Sorry to talk a lot about this game. It was just very fulfilling to get to take down
it's a
the
good
thing that I
one,
was
dude.
most worried about taking down.
It's 2 of the titans of the meta up against each other, so learning how the matchup shakes out super interesting. Also, like what you said, last time you played this, you tried a vibe check and just lost, and this time you played it a lot more carefully and like attacking his scoring elements and trying to slow him down, and it worked out, I mean, super well. So well done. I do have an answer for that Dark Angels Auspex thing. So you're talking about Grim Resolve, right? The chapter tactic?
Yeah.
So Grim Resolve says, each time a model with this tactic makes an attack, unless that model's unit has moved this turn, excluding pile-in and consolidation moves, add 1 to that attack's hit roll.
It's moved this turn, not moved in the previous movement phase. Gotcha. Yeah. They certainly have not moved in the movement phase. They do get to Auspex on 2s. Spicy.
Yep. Quite good.
Trying to think if there's any way that they move in my movement phase. Yeah, it's not real. Cool. All right, so that's a wrap on that. And now that I've held y'all hostage for long enough, we can get to the championship game, which is our boy Lucas going into our other boy Alex Pena. We love when a championship game looks like this because whoever wins, it's one of the boys. But obviously we've got to root for the mean green lanky machine. Nick, you want to run us through this sisters list that our boy Alex is playing? Because sorry, Goonhammer, this isn't just Bloody Rose good stuff. This is really interesting. Break it down for us, Nick.
So we got our, Bloody Rose list. We got Vol with her Warlord trait. Nice job bringing that this time, Alex. We got Celestine, badass character. We got the Canoness with the Fight Lass and the Blessed Blade. I think that's like the Mortal's Blade and everything. So it doesn't have the Fight on Death relic that a lot of people bring. And I think she has Word of the Emperor as well, right? The turn off Invol's aura. I mean, I guess that's part of the Fight Lass, I think. We got the Triumph, which I have not seen in 2 years. That model's super sick. We got the Repentia Superior. We got a Dogmata. We got 5 Sisters. We got 9/5/5 Repentia, 8/5/5 Zephyrim, 5 and 5 Rets, a Rhino, 2 Death Cult Assassins, and 2 Crusaders. How'd this game go, Lucas?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Unfortunately, I was a little excited, so I forgot to take pictures of the game. But it was definitely interesting. We rolled off for Attacker Defender, and Tyler and I had kind of talked through this matchup pregame. And this is actually the one mission where being the attacker does have some value because the attacker moves the first objective. So Tyler and I were discussing whether or not we thought it was more important to place the first piece of terrain or move the first objective, and we determined that it's probably better to move the first objective just to have a nice, safe, and secure good bits as an auto 15 by sticking that guy right outside my DZ. So I ended up being I ended up winning the roll off and choosing to be the attacker, pulling the first objective, my midfield closer to me. Alex also pulled his midfield closer to him so that we are going parity on good bits to defend the shrine. And then he moved mine toward the middle, and I moved his toward the middle as well. So we basically did the same thing. We took our own objectives and pulled them toward our DZs, and then we took our opponent's home objectives and pulled them toward the middle. We both agreed it was a matchup where we wanted to both go first. Alex ended up, again, the second game in a row, Alex rolled a 2 to go first, and then I rolled a 1. So Alex is the first turn. He ended up spending a bunch of CP pregame to move his Rhino forward with some Repentia in an effort to deny my good bits by killing some Gretchen and Pigs on a flank. He did so, which was pretty nasty stuff. So it prevented me from getting good bits in the early game. I kind of took a slightly cautious approach on turn 1. One of the great things about Sisters is their threat range is very defined. You can just ask them how far they move and how the range of their guns, and then stay outside of that. And that for Repentia, you just stay outside of a 6 move plus 6 advance plus 2d6 charge, stay outside of 24, and you're good to go. So their threat range is super defined, so I stayed outside of all that. In Alex's next turn, he continued to move up a little bit posture, and then I decided it was we're done with the formalities. We're gonna go do some crumping, and I charge. And by the end of turn 2, his DZ is full of orcs. I've still got a full health rig full of boys down there. I've got another rig on his defend the shrine objective full of boys, and then I've also got like 15 storm boys and a bunch of commandos and 10 beast nagas inside the midfield ruin, where the center objective is. And Alex makes a valiant effort of fighting back. He ends up killing the defend the shrine rig and its contents just flat out, and also ends up killing most of my storm boys. He also does a very good job of trying to disrupt once his initial gambit to deny get the good bits fails, because there's just 10 more Gretchen over there, and also I have tons of core units in my army that can do good bits. He realizes that he can deny me points by trying to hit the green tide, which he does successfully on turn 3. He does some desperate breakout plays out of a destroyed rhino and gets some like single smaller depleted units of Zephyrin back there and just starts killing the Gretchen, because ideally the orc player wants 10 Gretchen models to sit on each objective. One of them scores good bits and they both give you a green tide point. And if you can just kill one of those Gretchen from both squads, that's -2 points a turn, which is really big. So Alex did a great job of trying to deny those points by thinning the Gretchen a little bit with remnant units. But it ended up not really being enough because I was just able to beat him down in his deployment zone. Another game where basically the secondaries are, within 5 points of one another, but I blow my opponent out by like 20, 25 or more points on the primary, just because they start to lack any ability to hold objectives once I've killed all their OBSEC and I start whittling them down to just characters left. And we can see that we both picked our home objectives as our precious artifacts priority target objective, which was pretty interesting. My rationale for this was I didn't want Alex to get double value out of defending the defend the shrine objective, because if he gets points from getting his priority target on there and defend the shrine, it's really the only one that he super needs to turtle up on to get points. If I try to split his attention between the two objectives, I can more easily pounce on one or the other. Both of them are slightly less defended if he has to try to protect both objectives instead of one. So I felt like I did that pretty well. He ended up prioritizing the defend the shrine objective, and he ended up getting 15 on that guy. But priority target was only a 6 for him, and considering his 18 in the primary, that could have been a lot more points. So I feel like my strategy did pay off. Definitely a good game to Alex. This is not a matchup that's auto win for orcs, but I think it's deeply in their favor. Just all of the moderate amounts of AP at high strength, just wounding the sisters on 2s everywhere. Their stuff dies in such a hurry. They also have like a suspiciously difficult job killing kill rigs. All of the AP basically doesn't matter because I have the invulns. The Meltas are wounding on 4s, which isn't amazing, and all of the Zephyrim are winning on 6s, which isn't amazing, and the Repentia get ramshackled. So they don't really have a unit that's efficient at killing kill rigs that isn't more of involved poking them down over the course of 2 or 3 turns, which is why I decided to blitz him in on turn 2. But yeah, just not a very good matchup for sisters, but one they can definitely win. I feel like it has to be a more tricksy play style, where on turn 2 or 3, you try to drag the orcs in like 2 or 3 different directions. By, I think all he really needed to do was like put the 2 5-man squads of Zephyrim in Deep Strike and use them for Deep Strike charges onto my backfield objectives and my good bits objective to try to pull me backwards as well. Because Goths really don't like turning around. And if you can just put some really small, low investment unit on a backfield objective, take it from me, deny all my secondary points, and force me to turn around, that can take some pressure off of your units trying to survive in your DZ and can give you a fighting chance. That was something overall that a lot of my opponents didn't do at Rosehammer, was try to prey on my backfield. Goths have a really weak backfield and they hate turning around. So if you find yourself struggling into orcs, try to go after their Gretchen just with deep strike units, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, good game to Alex. It was a fun finals, but one that I felt confident in after about turn 2, once I had drowned his DZ in the green tide.
I do have an interesting question. Just kind of thought about here. So how do you think it would have happened if he put like Celestine in your backfield? Because she can deep strike charge as well, right?
I don't know if she can deep strike. She has the wings. I wouldn't see why not, but I've never seen anyone do it.
Yeah,
I think Zephyrim is the better call, though.
Okay. Like, she was pretty integral at stopping you from, like, just running him over.
Yeah, I think you want... It's a little bit of a balance of finding a unit that can prey on 10 Gretchen, but that isn't so much of an overinvestment that you actually significantly weaken your just, like, frontal defense that's defending your own 2 objectives. And without Celestine, that frontal defense becomes so much weaker. Whereas 5 Zephyrin really won't be missed all that much at the end of the day. Okay. They're never a good enough target to receive Morphin Balls rerolls, so they're kind of just walking out there, wounding all the orcs on 5s, and they kill like 4 dudes. The Zephyrim aren't great.
I was just kind of thinking from Alex's perspective, because like that's a real unit in your backfield that you have to now commit like real stuff to deal with.
True.
But it sounds like she was pretty integral at stopping you from just running him over. So
I think so.
And she can deep strike. Just looked it up, just so you know. Which is
the real spice on this list is definitely the Triumph. I mean, spending 900 points on characters is really a decision. And I mean, it got him to the final, so it obviously has very solid merit. How did she perform in this particular matchup? And do you think that another 200 points of nonsense would have been more appropriate just for this matchup? Obviously, he likes this list for the meta in general.
I'm not super sure. I would need to see her played more. I will say that the number of Miracle Ice he was generating was insane. At a certain... I tried to keep track of it, and like turn 1, I'm like, that one's coming from your beginning of the battle round, that one's coming from you killing X, that one's coming from Impentia, that one's coming from the Triumph. And after a while, it was just way too much. He had like 25 Miracle Dice piled up, and I'm like, all right, sure, you can have your 12 on Leap of Faith. That's fine with me. You can have all. It
certainly takes that secondary from good to insane.
Yes, it definitely gets it automatically. Whether or not you need the Triumph to score new Leap, I don't really know. I haven't played enough Sisters to... I certainly haven't played them since Leap got changed, so I don't really know how that secondary is scored. I don't know how well you score it if you don't have the Triumph. Because in theory, it seems like a slower-paced game where you don't have the Triumph. You might actually not score super well on Leap, which I think was their intended goal of changing the secondary, is it's less good defensively because you can't just like discard all your Miracle Dice and get a 12 if you aren't generating any. So it might be specifically for those games, but in aggro games, it's more or less a bunch of points of dead weight, unfortunately. She just ended up getting bapped in combat, didn't do anything, got tagged again, killed like 1 pig, and then the biker boss ran over and thunder punched her in the face. So yeah, she didn't really have a great game, but I can see why she's useful.
For sure. Very cool. Well, that about does it for the boy. Means that Lukas Troller finishes in first place out of 98 players at Rosehammer GT, who we got our boy Lucas with his trophy. We got a big old baseball trophy. It's very silly, but I'm a big fan. Lucas, let's hit some reflections on your run, your army. How are we feeling going forward? And we'll talk about the event at large and the train and stuff in a minute.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling excited about Orcs. They're wicked strong. They have some troublesome matchups, like I alluded to at the beginning. I feel like the strongest armies in the meta can still prey on them pretty effectively. I think Guard's sketchy. I think Dark Angels are sketchy. But overall, they do a ton of damage, and they can really deny the opponent's primary. I won most of my games at Rosehammer by going roughly parity on secondaries, having the defensive secondary game plan as a backup in case my opponent wanted to not fight. And then when they fought, I ended up just smashing them on the primary by like 20 or 30 points. That happened against Black Legion. That happened against Sisters. That happened against Guard. That happened against Harry, Salamanders. And that also happened against Botan. So in 4 of my 6 games, I won it based on a primary differential. So yeah, super happy with how the list works. I'm not really thinking of making many changes. The last like 50 to 80 points were up for a debate before the list, before Rosehammer, and they're still up for debate now. I'm not really sure what I value most highly. It's more or less a choice of like, how big do you want your Stormboy squads to be? Do you want a 3rd squad of pigs? Do you want a 3rd squad of commandos? And I'm still not sure what the answer to those things are. The answer to those questions are different units are good in different matchups. And I feel like overall the pigs are probably the best. The extra bomb squig is some nice mortals, and it's just a unit that trades so far up with all the 2 damage attacks it has for just 80 points. So probably going to keep them in, which means that basically no changes to the list at all.
I feel like there's one really important change that you should make.
Oh, yeah, I do need to put in the opposite Gretchen. That was so silly, guys. I'm not going to lie. It came up in every game. There was I don't know about every game, but at least all of my day 1 games, my opponent walked onto an objective and they're like, I'm OBSEC. And I said, okay, well, I am too, but not really. So I guess you can have that point.
For those of you all following along at home who may not have heard about this yet, which is probably almost all of you, Lukas forgot to set one of his Gretchen units as Orbital Gits, which is a 0-point upgrade that he gets for free with no other specialist mob units. So none of his Grots were OBSEC instead of a 10-man being, and no OBSEC versus 1 of 3 OBSEC is a very big difference. Considered taking the yellow to just flip it. Honestly, he probably could have just asked Colton and had it flipped, but took the most honorable path forward and won the tournament with it with an arm tied behind his back. What a gangster.
Yes, sir. So yeah, those Gretchen should be OBSEC, but not the biggest deal at the end of the day. Yeah.
Just don't put him in the wagon.
Yeah, don't put him in a battle wagon.
Oh goodness. But yeah, super happy with all of the choices. Happy I didn't take Zagstruck out. I debated it for a second, but that man is a Chad. Even though he didn't actually accomplish that much this weekend, just the threat of him existing, and I'm still learning how to play him correctly. Because he's so small, you can really push the Lookout's shenanigans to 11 and position him very aggressively accordingly, and then he can just launch his way to whatever he wants to. And he's definitely a key piece of the Goff list. Yeah, I can't think of a list change. I'm definitely looking to get more reps into the A and S tier armies right now. Gotten a couple rounds into World Eaters. I think that matchup is basically a wash, so it's a little bit sketchy for singles, because it's more or less you guys get the same number of points, and whoever happens to deny a couple of rounds of primary of the opponent ends up winning, because both people's secondaries are so good. So World Eaters is a little sketchy, and I need to play Dark Angels a couple more times, but overall I'm feeling really solid with where Orcs are on the meta. The mortals from the kill rigs and the shooting are just so good at surprising the opponent if they just think you're going to do melee damage. And then all of the bosses just each have such a unique damage profile that unless your opponent's really savvy with what you're going to be slinging their way, they can get surprised by some massive damage in a big hurry. So, yeah, definitely going to be playing Orcs for the foreseeable future. Friendship ended with Chaos Knights. It was a fun 6 months, but you guys can go back on the shelf. 20% painted. Godspeed, heroes.
Very cool. Alrighty. Well, let's do a couple of reflections here. I think the big thing we want to talk about is the terrain system. We talked about this being player place. We talked about, I can just flip back to any of the pictures here. We've got these straight pieces. We've got these elves. We've got forests. We've got crates. How did y'all feel about the Rosehammer setup, and what would y'all like to see changing about it moving forward?
I liked it overall. I think some things worked better than others. Specifically, I think all of the L pieces are great. I think they need bases and a couple of little clarifications regarding there was some stuff like if you stand a certain distance from the wall, I can't shoot you or be in combat, whatever it is. Just clarify some things so there's less shenanigans, and then the L's work perfectly. The straight pieces are great. There's 4 sizes. There's the little short one, which you can see right now. It's like in the bottom left underneath the shadow of my hand taking the picture there. That's a little short straight piece. And then there's also a really long one that's like 16 inches long. Those two are a little bit awkward in my opinion. The short one is fine, whatever. But the long one in particular is just so board defining. I don't actually like it that much. The 2 middle-sized straight pieces are excellent in my opinion. I think the straight pieces are definitely underutilized. We've seen them before on the FLG table, specifically the field base. It's just such a cool piece of terrain. It more or less lets infantry play the same way, but changes the way that vehicles and cavalry have to, and that those kind of units, bikers, have to move around an obscuring piece. That makes it a little bit more awkward for them. And the fact that they have windows is also good because it means that shooting armies can still interact with them, albeit at a limited capacity. So I'm a big fan of the short piece, the straight pieces, specifically the one that's on the far right side of the screen right now. In my deployment zone, that thing is like the ideal short or straight piece length, in my opinion. The one that's a little bit above it is just a little bit too long for my tastes.
These
But
distances,
the two medium
for
length
reference, by
ones,
the
in
way,
my opinion,
are the shortest one is 6, then it goes 8, 12, 16. So the 8 and the 12 seem like the really good ones. 6 is a little small. I kind of dig having a couple of 6s to play with, but the 16 is something.
Yeah, the forest situation was awkward. We need
that's
even if it's literally just a square, have it be flat, have it be a heavy piece of terrain so you can lay it flat against the table. It was definitely awkward having that forest be a little bit loosey goosey.
Forest improvement.
Trying to think of other things.
Do you want me to walk people through what was up with the L's?
Sure.
So this was the thing that came up. I don't have a picture on Game to John, but this came up in the Game to John as something that I realized. These L's, like we said, you have to physically touch the L to see through, which is really cool. It means you can hide really deep in them. But the L's themselves are about half an inch thick, which means that if you line up a bunch of dudes a millimeter back from the L, there is no space you can stand touching the L from the outside while staying outside of engagement range of the dudes on the inside. And because neither of you are touching, then you can't see through it and shoot, which is very silly. The solution to this is really easy. You add a little bit of a lip around such that the lip is in total over an inch wide. Now, if I want to prevent you from touching the train, I have to touch the train myself, and then we're back at square one and you're shooting me again. Easy fix. This was not intentional. This was an unfortunate reality that had to be accepted. The forest, I agree with. There's also a lot of plans for there to be better crates and more crates. We'll see how much of that comes to pass. There were talks of there being a table where you got 6 crates, which was super cool, that you could either like build a crate L or you could have these various different, I mean, I know that Anthony really hates playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I think that's the most fun version of Roller Coaster Tycoon, when you can really go off the rails with lots of crates. But yeah, I think that some of the pieces still need a couple more windows in them right now. I know that some of them, like these, look really good, but there were also some straight pieces that just had like one little door, which was sub-ideal. But conceptually speaking, I think, the 16-inch straight piece was a little too much. But straight pieces are so cool. They make the angles so interesting. And being a bunch of 4-inch pieces with straight pieces means that you can get really tight angles that you have to cut. But again, you touch them and everything's see-through, or also, they really inhibit your own ability to move with non-infantry models. The more crates builds are also great because they counter this, because they make breachable way less effective if you want to get the same level of coverage. So what did you think about these tables, Nick?
I agree with Lucas on pretty much everything. The L's just needed lips. The fact that you could be like right in there. Also, it's really awkward when you have a vehicle that's like too tall to actually fit under the lip. So you like touch the second story and you guys kind of both look at each other and you're like, I'm touching it. That created some awkwardness here and there.
Didn't even occur to me. That's very funny.
Yeah, that happened in the game with Hank, where his Dorn like physically couldn't touch the wall, but he like piled in consoles of his like turret touched the upper floor, and he's like, I unlock it, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that's the only way. Yeah. The straight pieces, the 16s were way too wide, because they can just like what Lucas said, as soon as you slam them down, it creates this very awkward like 4-inch bubble. Yeah, way too tall. And then the small ones, I honestly would have just preferred those to be a crate. They basically they were an obscuring crate with breachable. I think a crate would have been more interesting. But the middle straights were sick. I like the whole thing where you can like kind of plan out and be like, how am I going to stop angles by like plugging this gap with like a medium straight wall? Super nice. The L's were great. The big L was sick. I liked that the big L wasn't usually paired with another L. So it was kind of like you get a big L and like, there you go. The double medium L boards were sick. The force, again, yes, I agree with Lucas. The size of the force was inconsistent, which was annoying. They weren't flat, which was annoying. I think you just get like the WTC, like rectangle force. Those are like...
Oh, yeah. What
right?
the forest is such a solved problem. This was such an awkward
Exactly.
stop that, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it creates consistent sizes, right? Consistent sizes. I love the size of like the FLG crates. Like those are like nice and big. I think you should be able to hide like a infantry model behind a crate. I like that it is like obscuring, but not actually obscuring, but only for like certain types of models, or like bikers, right, can hide behind it as well. And I like how crates block movement. Like it kind of takes away some of the power of infantry, but
it's nice that crates kind of facilitate the height of your model. The height of your model actually matters, which I don't think there's a lot of that in 40k right now, because of the way obscuring works and that kind of stuff, and just the fact that buildings are a little bit more functional rather than with all sorts of fancy trimmings. The height and the actual physical size of your model rarely seems like it matters, and crates actually do make that statistic matter a fair bit.
And it goes both ways, because if you're really tall, you can see over crates into things even if they're fairly short, which makes things like knights feel a lot more useful when they're getting cucked by crates so hard. How did y'all feel about the everything is a 4-inch?
I think the 6 is there for a reason, and it's to keep big pieces of terrain away from each other. So I think the L's should all be the L's. This is ridiculous. I don't know what the hell's going on the top side of the board there, but I don't think I'd ever be able to move any model in my army through that area. I think that all of the L pieces should be 6 from each other, and then everything else is 4 from each other. And that's more or less where I'm at. Yeah. You guys, what do you guys think about that?
I would more or less agree. I'm intrigued by this result where we both get a centerpiece to hide behind on the middle objective. I found that curious. I don't know if I like it, but it was something that I hadn't considered before.
Yeah. This doesn't work as soon as we add lips, though, right?
Yeah, 100%. As soon as you add a base, this doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we just add a base and see where we're at then, because the base is like increasing the size of the ruins, the distance they have to be from each other, without really increasing the distance they have to be from each other. So we'll see. We'll see how that. I'd want to see that before I make any sweeping comments about how close the ruins should be to one another.
Bases on ruins are really interesting because they increase the obscuring without increasing the move blocking, which I think is a really good combination, because it's like, the pieces are 4 inches apart, but they've also got an inch of base on either side. So a 6-inch wide model still fits, but the obscuring isn't any worse for hiding behind them, which I kind of dig.
I personally enjoy that as well. It also benefits my army. What I realized was that the kill rigs are like 4.5 inches wide. So ruins with lips, I can fit between them even if they're 4 apart, whereas ruins without, I cannot. So that having a base on all these L's, much like the base for the straight pieces, would definitely help those models that are like just barely over 4 inches actually be able to traverse the board.
Maybe that's what I should have done if we had played, is just lined up a bunch of terrain features with 4-inch gaps with no way for you to get your kill rigs over the side of the table.
That shouldn't happen.
No,
shouldn't be possible.
It's deeply silly.
Yeah, the land forts have the same thing where if you like turn the little beam things out to the side, you can actually like scrape along the terrain. So you just don't do that, and then you can go through the 4-inch gaps. But yeah,
nice, very cool. Okay, so like we said, this is a terrain set that is actively evolving. Colton has already talked about a whole bunch of different changes that he wants to make. He also at one point said he wanted to throw all this stuff away, which I think is nonsense. This is all really cool stuff that I'm very excited to be seeing more of.
This is a success that needs a couple of tweaks.
Absolutely.
For a first time, like, I don't know, test of the terrain set at a huge tournament, it went super well, I think. I never once heard anyone say, like, God, this terrain is garbage. The only thing I heard was, like, man, this terrain's kind of hard to shoot on, which, like, that's a fine complaint.
Absolutely.
I think terrain should be kind of hard to be able to shoot your opponent in their DZ turn 1.
Yeah, as it turns out. It was really funny watching John, our Tau player, the guy who played round 5, as he just, like, over the course of the event rapidly oscillated between this terrain is the best thing ever and this terrain is absolutely terrible, because it's really interesting for guns. And
that's some classic John shit, though. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, because like the straight pieces you're talking about, like Tau could fly up and just unlock the board if the straight piece is like deployed forward. But these L's, what was super cool is like the L's were all designed where one side of them had no windows and then one side had windows on the bottom. So like depending on how you deploy your terrain, the tower only going to be able to shoot like through one part of the board.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Once they have lips, I think that becomes a really interesting feature. I think because they don't have lips at the moment, they're basically solid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very cool conceptually. So I'll be excited to see how it works out. I really like both sizes of L's as well. I think we nailed both of the sizes. I'm a little concerned about the little ones. If we add a full inch, I hope it's more like a half inch on either side. Because taking a full inch out and then even more than that along the diagonal in the corner is going to make them a lot smaller. But we'll see how this all works out.
You don't want them to be so fat that you can only put like 3 models there without actually touching it.
Yeah, because at a certain point they stop being an L and start being a triangle, and now we're back at FLG nonsense world again.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, well, overall, very excited about all this stuff. Obviously, very excited about our boy Lukas taking home the trophy.
Gork. The orcs are the best.
Good stuff.
I know people like don't love player place, but like that's kind of the reality of where we're at. That's like what we're playing over here, and I mean we're trying to make it as best we can. I think we're getting there.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of the player placed hate. I think it's the best singles format that exists right now. It's better than UKTC, and it's better than playing WTC in singles, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah, I don't agree or disagree with that. I think hating on player placed because it's player placed is a like brain rot, terrible take.
I think hating on player placed because the terrain you're given is bad is totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Let's say
if you're given terrain
on garbage, then you're going to get a garbage result.
Yeah, it's like here's a weird board where how do I make a functional board out of this? And they're like, I don't know, but if you mess up, it's your fault. Like, all right, that's dumb. So I like that TOs are like, okay, it's a lot of effort to make like a pre-made terrain set. So we're going to go with like building terrain that's functional with player place in mind. Saves them a lot of time and also.
Yeah, I really, to explain my take a little more, I really like the player placed because it removes let me take the sponsons off my tank so that I happen to fit behind this particular piece of terrain at this particular angle that I like. I find that sort of gaming to be incredibly silly.
Yeah, it's a little bit too formulaic for me as well.
Yeah. The table is good. You will get the terrain that you need to vaguely hide approximately the right number of things. And I also really like the variance that we had between tables. I think that was one thing that Colton nailed, was that every table felt a little bit different and I had to solve a new problem. But they all got the job done once I had figured out what to do with them. And that was so much more fun than even the freaking chaos table, and certainly more so than a preset board would have been.
Yep.
Variety is the spice of life. All right, cool. Well, any other comments you guys have before we sign off this tournament? We're only 3 hours 15 into the show, so we've got a lot of time.
Yeah, somehow a massively long show, but here we are.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for listening to Best Infection, the Next Generation. I plugged stuff earlier, but in case you're somehow still here 3 hours and 15 minutes into the show and you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, review us on your podcast players, check out our Patreon if you want to join the Discord, if you somehow want to keep the conversation going. Check out the YouTube memberships if you want to see more stuff. If you like our silly little icons and some very funny phrases, I know Lucas played into Josh who really likes some of the phrases. Check out bestintabletop.com/store. We got lots of cool different merch. We've got a War Boss on bike. That's actually not that's not for sale, unfortunately. But if you wanna paint like Lucas, join the Discord to talk to him to learn about how to do it. Anyway, those are the ways that you can support us. We really appreciate each your support. Oh God, I should have done this a long time ago. One massive plug is that Brood Wars is coming up in 6 weeks? No, more than that.
June 3rd and 4th?
March.
It's in
April.
2 to 3 months. It's sometime in June.
It's in 8 weeks, not 10 weeks. It's first weekend of June. It's going to be awesome. 5-man teams. Get hype. We're going to be there. 100%. Lots of other people are going to be there. Sorry?
I was going to say, yeah, it's in Olympia, Washington.
Yeah, it's in Olympia, Washington. The hotel rates are super good, especially considering that it's June. Super lovely town. Great place is to host events. It's going to be run by our boy Chase, and I think Bird's helping out as well. It's going to be really cool. Team 40K is the best 40K. If you're struggling if you don't think you have a 5-man team, you can either just show up or you can come join in one of the Discords. They have one for those guys up there where they're facilitating that, getting teams together. If that's too complicated for you, DM one of us. We'll figure it out. We'll get you on a team because Team 40K is the best 40K. And the more of that happens here, the better. We want to be the center for Team 40K in the US because it's the best way to play. So check out Brood Wars. We'll be there. We're going to be talking about it nonstop between now and then. You got a while to get your team together, get your stuff. There will be a data slate between now and then, so don't freak out too much about your composition just yet. But with all that being said and done, thank you so much for listening. I've been Tyler.
I've been
you have
Nick.
something to add? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to talk about other episodes, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, for sure. Go ahead, Nick.
Next week, March 25th, we're going to be doing Votan faction focus episode for ARCs. So look forward to that. And then the week after, do we have anything? Do we want to talk about that or no?
We'll figure that out later. But next week
we have a cool thing scheduled. Cool discussion.
We got some cool stuff coming up. Yeah.
April.
So next week is going to be Votan's going to finish up our stuff. Come back, check out what Nick has to say about it. With all that being said and done, I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
And I'm Lucas Cork's Chosen.
And we'll see y'all next week on The Next Generation. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Later, gits.
Have a good afternoon.